Na tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu, twakusihi tutazame kwa neema nyingi na baraka sisi watumishi wako ambao umeridhika kutuita kwa nyadhifa za uongozi katika jamhuri hii yetu. Twakuomba tuwajalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Clerk, we have quorum. Sergeant at Arms, kindly ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes. Honorable Senators, we do have quorum now, so we'll proceed with the business of the day. Clerk, kindly call the first order.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
The Senate Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, 3rd June 2026, Equalization Fund, third quarter report for fiscal year 2025-2026 on the implementation of the Equalization Fund. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay on behalf of the Senate Leader of Majority. Thank you.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
The Senate Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, thank you once again. On behalf of the Leader of Majority, I beg to give notice of the following motion that, notwithstanding the resolution of the Senate made on the 17th of February 2026, approval of the Senate calendar, and pursuant to Standing Order 32-4, the Senate resolved to alter its calendar for the 5th session 2026 in respect of Part 3 so as to proceed on recess from Friday 19th of June 2026 and to resume regular sittings on Tuesday 14th of July 2026. Mr. Speaker, I give notice.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Statement pursuant to Standing Order 53-1, the Honorable Senator for Bungoma County, Senator David Wakole. That statement is dropped. Senator Hamida Kibwana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My statement is regarding the alarming rise in cases of missing children in the country. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement for the Standing Committee on Labor, Social Welfare and on a matter of national concern regarding the alarming rise in cases of missing children in the country. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the recent past, Kenya has witnessed a disturbing rise in cases of missing children, many of which have tragically ended in deaths while the whereabouts of others remain unknown. Recent heartbreaking cases such as that of 5-year-old Travis Wanjohi and 1-year-old Mary Wanjiru in Nyeri County, who were found dead on 30th March 2026 and 10th April 2026 respectively, have shaken the conscience of the nation and exposed glaring gaps in our child protection systems, investigative processes, and community-level responses. Mr. Speaker, equally concerning are the many reported cases that remain unresolved. Luther Mwangi, an autistic 5-year-old child from Dandora in Nairobi, went missing on 15th April 2026 and is yet to be found. Neville Kibui from Kangemi in Nairobi and Precious Jepchichir from Kaimoi village in Nandi County, who went missing on 29th August 2025 and 4th March 2025, respectively, also constitute some of the statistics of missing children who have never been found. The pain endured by families searching for their loved ones is immeasurable, and the urgency to act cannot be overstated. This matter is not only about statistics, but the lives of innocent children whose futures are cut short or remain uncertain. In the statement, the committee should address the following. Number one, the annual breakdown of the number of missing children reported to the State Department for Children's Services, formerly Directorate of Children's Services, and the National Police Service from 2021 to date. Number two, the status of investigations into the deaths of Travis Wanjohi and Mary Wanjiru from Nyeri County, as well as findings from other cases where missing children were later found dead. Number three, the established protocols for responding to reports of missing children, including specific steps taken to trace Luther Mwangi, Neville Kibui, and Precious Jepchichir. Number four, the existing coordination mechanisms between police, children's offices, schools, hospitals, and local administrators in handling cases of missing children. And finally, the measures being implemented to strengthen child protection systems, prevent abductions, and provide psychological, psychosocial, and other support to families of missing children. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator for Kilifi County, the Honorable Stewart Mazayo.
Asante mstahiki Spika. Mstahiki Spika, ombi la kauli kuhusu ucheleweshaji mkubwa wa ujenzi na ukarabati wa barabara kuu ya Mombasa Malindi. Mheshimiwa Spika, nasimama kwa mujibu wa kanuni za kudumu kipengele cha 53 sheria ya kwanza za Seneti kuomba kauli kwa kamati ya kudumu ya barabara, uchukuzi na makazi kuhusu ucheleweshaji mkubwa na ujenzi na ukarabati wa barabara kuu ya Mombasa Malindi, hususan inayoanzia sehemu za Shimolatewa na hatimaye kuvuka bridge na kuingia maeneo ya Mtwapa, Mzambarauni, mpaka mbele majengo Kanamai na hatimaye kuishia katika sehemu ya Kikambala. Mheshimiwa Spika, barabara hii ndio uti wa mgongo wa uchumi na maeneo ya pwani nchini Kenya. Inaunganisha jamii mbalimbali, inachochea sekta ya utalii, inawezesha biashara na inasaidia maelfu ya wananchi kujipatia riziki. Hata hivyo, licha ya ahadi za mara kwa mara na uwekezaji mkubwa wa fedha za umma, mradi huu umeendelea kucheleweshwa kwa miaka mingi, hali ambayo imewaacha wakazi na watumiaji wa barabara wakikumbwa na msongamano mkubwa wa magari, uharibifu wa magari, ongezeko la gharama za usafiri, hatari za kiusalama, pamoja na kupotea kwa fursa za kiuchumi. Mheshimiwa Spika, ucheleweshaji huu kwa muda mrefu umegeuka kuwa chanzo cha malalamiko na mateso kwa wananchi, wafanyi biashara, wawekezaji na wageni wanaotembelea maeneo hayo ya pwani. Kile ambacho kinapaswa kuwa alama ya maendeleo sasa kimekuwa ishara ya kutotekelezwa kwa ahadi na kushindwa kufika makata yaliyowekwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, katika kauli hiyo, kamati inapaswa kujibu masuala yafuatayo. Ya kwanza, kutoa taarifa ya kina kuhusu hali ya sasa ya mradi wa barabara kuu ya Mombasa hadi Malindi, ikijumlishwa asilimia ya kazi iliyokamilika katika kila sehemu ya mradi, hatua muhimu zilizofikiwa hadi sasa na muda unaotarajiwa na kukamilika kwa kazi zilizobaki. Swala la pili, kamati hii ni kueleza sababu za kucheleweshaji kwa muda mrefu na utekelezaji wa mradi huo, ikiwemo changamoto za kimkataba, kifedha, kiufundi, upatikanaji wa ardhi, uhamishaji wa huduma za umma au masuala ya kiutawala, na kubainisha waliohusika na kushindwa kukamilisha mradi ndani ya muda uliopangwa. Na mwisho, Bwana Spika, kamati hii iweze kubainisha kiwazi hatua zilizochukuliwa na serikali ili kuharakisha kukamilisha kwa mradi huo na kuhakikisha kuwa kazi zilizobaki zitakamilishwa kwa wakati unaofaa. Asante, Bwana Spika.
Senator Mungatana.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations on a matter of county-wide concern regarding the decade-long ban on nighttime travel for public service vehicles along the Malindi-Garseni-Lamu Highway, specifically the Lamu-Witu-Garseni stretch. Mr. Speaker, sir, this prolonged curfew, active since 19th July 2014, has severely crippled the local economy, causing public transport operators to lose an estimated 2.95 billion in direct gross ticket revenue, alongside severe capital stagnation from underutilized vehicle assets. Despite a late May 2026 High Court ruling in Garsen suspending the night travel curfew, local police commanders have maintained the roadblocks, citing a legal standstill and a lack of explicit counter directives from the Inspector General of Police and the Ministry of Interior. This operational gridlock has triggered massive friction, culminating in 3 separate strikes where frustrated transport operators blocked the highway with long-distance buses. In the statement, the committee should address the following: the legality and justification for a local law enforcement continuing to enforce the night travel roadblocks despite the late May 2026 High Court order suspending the curfew. 2, the exact measures being taken by the Ministry of Interior and the Inspector General of Police to issue clear directives to regional security heads to resolve the enforcement of the deadlock. Number 3, the security interventions in place to safely open up the Lamu-Witu-Garseni stretch for night travel, considering cargo transporters are already permitted to use the route. 4, the economic recovery plans or mitigations proposed by the government to support the local PSV operators who have suffered Kenya shillings 2.95 billion in revenue losses. Senator Dr. Danson Mungatana, Tana River County. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Statements pursuant to Standing Order 56-1B. The Chairperson of Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 56-1B of the Senate Standing Orders to make a statement relating to the activities of the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources during the period between January 2026 and April 2026. Honorable Speaker, the Senate Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources established under Standing Order number 2284 of the Senate Standing Orders and is mandated to consider all matters relating to lands and settlement, environment, forestry, wildlife, mining, water resource management and development, and the climate change. Honorable Speaker, during the period under review, the committee held a total of 23 sittings, during which it considered 3 bills, 7 petitions, and 17 statements. Honorable Speaker, the committee is in the process of finalizing the following 7 petitions, namely the petition by Cultural Environment Care Society concerning conversion of LR number 209/2378/1 Pumwani Majengo from public to private. Number 2, the petition regarding the eviction of Korogocho community living along the Nairobi River corridor after its declaration as a special planning area. Number 3, the petition by Oldekesi community members regarding land injustices against the community members living in Oldekesi, Narok West constituency of Narok County. Number 4, the petition on the threats, intimidation, harassment, and eviction of residents of Ganda Ward by private developers. Number 5, the petition regarding the eviction from the property reference number CP and ARCH/00219 excision of LR number 209/6738. Number 6, petition regarding unlawful land raise in Kahawa Sukari, Kiambu County. And number 7, petition regarding public land grabbing in Kithima location in Meru County. Additionally, the committee has received responses on 5 statements which have been duly dispatched to the relevant senators and 13 other responses from the Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development that have just been received and is awaiting physical appearance from the relevant cabinet secretary and will thereafter be dispatched to the relevant senators who sought the statements. Honorable Speaker, the committee further considered the status of county projects funded under the conditional allocations. These include the financially locally led Climate Action Program, FLOCA, the Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture Project, KCSAP, and the Water Sanitation Development Project, WSDP. The committee observed that progress in implementing conditional allocation projects varied across counties. The committee has since received submissions from 8 counties, namely Homa Bay, Migori, Nandi, Kericho, Nairobi, with the most recent meeting being with the county government of Bungoma at the committee's sitting held on Tuesday, 28th of April, 2026. Further, the committee engaged the counties of Kwale and Kilifi on FLOCA during a joint visit to the counties with the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on 27th and 28th of March 2026, respectively. Honorable Speaker, the committee is currently considering 1 bill, the Real Estate Regulation Bill, Senate Bills number 35 for 2023, and is in the process of considering the submissions. I will be submitting a report on the bill before the next reporting period. On the Natural Resources Benefit Sharing Bill, Senate Bills number 6 of 2022, it is still under mediation, and there are challenges in calling for the first mediation meeting arising from the varied calendars of both houses. The committee is, however, seized of the matter and is making efforts to ensure that consideration will be completed by the next reporting period. Lastly, on the Mining Amendment Bill 2025, Senate Bill number 22 of 2025, the committee will conduct public participation on the bill in Vihiga, Kakamega and Migori counties on Friday 15th and 16th and Saturday 16th of June 26. Thereafter, table its report. Honorable Speaker, in conclusion, I wish to thank members of the committee, your office, and that of the Clerk of the Senate for the continuous support accorded to the committee in undertaking its work. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Chairperson, Standing Committee on National Cohesion, Equal Opportunity and Regional Integration, or any member of that committee. That statement is deferred. Now, Honorable Senators, I will allow comments on the statements that have been sought for not more than 15 minutes. If you get an opportunity to speak, kindly do so for not more than 3 minutes. The Honorable Kavindu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I want to comment on the statement by Senator Amida Kibwana about the alarming rise on cases of disappearing and missing children. Mr. Speaker, our children are very important, and I don't know what we should do as a government and as a people to really protect the children. When I was growing, Mr. Speaker, children belonged to every parent, everybody who met a child on the road, cared and protected that child. And if the child was misbehaving, they could even be punished by anybody who is not their parent. But these days, we are a society which no longer cares about our children and never concerned about them. Even if we meet them on the streets going, you cannot stop and ask this child, where are you going? Where is your home? And all this. And children must be protected. And I'm agreeing with my fellow Senator Amida that the committee concerned, when the statement is laid on them, they should go far and above just what is needed to be done so that our children will be protected. Parents go through a lot of pain, especially those who miss their children, and children go missing and they are never found, whether dead or alive, and they live with a pain that is never ending, because losing a child or missing a child and they've not died, you've not buried them, it remains a pain and a great pain. So I support this statement, and something must be done about our children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mutinda Tabit.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to still support my sister's statement on the issue of missing children in this country. And I first want to really convey my sincere condolences to the families of our affected ones who have lost their young ones, and also to really condemn these rising cases of our young children. As Senator Kavindu has put it, yes, years ago the children we used actually to be for the community. Senator, if a neighbor would see me misbehaving, okay, of course, which I didn't, but was entitled to take a whip and, cane me, and I really had to adhere. But today things have changed. You cannot touch someone's kid because it becomes chaotic. Teachers are also becoming afraid of disciplining our kids because these kids that we are raising today, things have become so different. Things have changed. The schools are scared. I've seen head teachers sending students home now. If one raises an issue, they have made a decision, just go home, because now they have burst with the responsibility of answering to the authorities what happened, how did this fire start. So everybody is fearing. We are fearing, but is it where we need to be? We want to ask our young ones, we want to ask that we give room for talks and communication, because there's a big disconnect. Truth be told, our children have got their own ways of doing things. Guardians, parents, the communities who are vested with this responsibility, everybody's running away. It's a very sad situation. And the saddest of all, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, imagine in this time and era, it is young children at the age of 10, at the age of 9, who are being used to abduct little ones. When I saw the cases happening in our great city in Nairobi, actually down here in Dandora, it is this young girl who had coordinated an abduction of one of the kids within the neighborhood. And she sits back so comfortable, like so innocent. We need to have proper different engagements. Kindly, our young ones, can you tell us, can you communicate to us, then what do we do? Because this country cannot go on like this. Every life is important. Every kid deserves a better life, and I want to ask our little ones, kindly, let us see how to better the environment that we live in. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Senator for Nairobi City County, the Honorable Sifuna.
Speaker, of course, I will take a very different trajectory. The Constitution of this country guarantees every single person the right to life and the right to equal protection of the law. And, Mr. Speaker, the responsibility to protect life and property in this country will never shift from the state. Speaker, it is untrue. I want to disagree with my two sisters, the senators who have spoken before me, that Kenyans have somehow stopped caring about the children. It cannot be true. It is the responsibility of government to make sure that our children are safe. We used to be taken care of by both the state and by the people themselves. Over the weekend, Senator Kavindu knows that I was at AIC Chianda in Machakos. And, Honorable Speaker, the Reverend, the person who gave us a sermon that day, read to us Proverbs 29 verse 2, which says that when the righteous are in power, the people rejoice. But when the wicked rule, the people mourn. Honorable Speaker, sometimes my faith is tested. I had to ask the Reverend if really God listens to the tears of Kenyans. People are crying all over this country. If it is not missing children, it is murdered children. If it's not murdered children, it is children being burnt in dormitories in our schools. If it is not that, it is Ebola, Honorable Speaker. The country is mourning all over the place. And by the way, Speaker, when you listen to the people who have been charged with securing us, the CS for Interior, first of all, everybody saw how he arrived at the school there on the morning of the fire to Mishi. We were embarrassed for the leadership of this country. He is on record, and we will never tire reminding Senator Murkomen, CS Murkomen, that he says that the entire state surveillance has been tied to political leaders in this country, that he knows where Sifuna sleeps and what time I go to sleep. That surveillance, Honorable Speaker, should be turned in dealing with these criminals. How is it possible that they follow us around but they cannot track and find these children who are been taken before they are murdered, Honorable Speaker? I saw a documentary from Al Jazeera just the other day confirming what Murkomen was telling us, that the state surveillance, and even with the connivance of some of the mobile service providers in this country, they are the ones giving away locations of people who they disagree with politically so that they can be abducted, Honorable Speaker. So we have to be honest. It is the responsibility of the state to protect these kids, and they have failed in that particular responsibility. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, I heard Senator Mungatana also cry. The people at Tana River also cry that despite a court order lifting or suspending that curfew, nobody is respecting court orders. Senator Mungatana, this is why we in Linda Mwananchi are saying we want to revert to the values in our constitution. The rule of law starts with respect for court orders. Even just recently, Honorable Speaker, on this question of Ebola, even after our courts have said you put a hold to that project until we are able to give proper answers to Kenyans, our government doesn't care. They are going on with the project. Reports are showing that activity is going on there. Nobody's bothered. Nobody's bothered that our own courts in this country have said that you stop that particular project until we are able to give answers.
What is your point of order, Senator Fernandez?
Mr. Speaker, I stand under Standing Order 105. While I agree with the other part of what he has said, I don't agree, Mr. Speaker. Is it in order for the Senator of Nairobi to allege that the operations within Nanyuki military, which is a protected area, is ongoing, Mr. Speaker? Can you table the evidence to show that what he is alleging on issue of operation of quarantine facility in Nanyuki military air base is there. Yet we know he's not even a watchman, let alone a military officer. Can he table the evidence?
Now, Honorable Senator for Nairobi City County, you've indicated and alleged that a court order was obtained regarding the issue of Ebola. And you've gone ahead to say that despite that court order, work is still being undertaken in Laikipia Air Base. Can you substantiate those allegations?
Speaker, first of all, I am happy that the Senator for Nandi agrees with me that the wicked are in power in this country. That was the first part. Number two, Honorable Speaker, it is a fact that there is a court order. It is a fact that activity has been reported, including military aircraft from the US having landed at this facility, and I can bring those videos. And Speaker, this time round, I want to beseech this House, just the way we play videos during impeachment of governors. You allow us to play those videos here, so that it is not just one person sitting in an office saying that I was unable to substantiate.
Senator, you'd wish time to...
Yes, because I didn't think that anyone here was going to challenge us on matters that are known to everyone.
Senator Sifuna, I will give you up to tomorrow. You may now proceed to conclude.
And make arrangements for me to play videos of American aircraft landing at Laikipia. Yeah. So, Mr. Speaker.
How are you going to substantiate, Honorable Senator, will remain in your hands?
No,
I have given you up to tomorrow to come and substantiate those allegations. For now, just conclude.
Speaker, just for clarity. Previously, when colleagues in this House have brought material that needed to be played for the House, arrangements were not made the way we make arrangements during impeachment proceedings for that media to be played. I am saying here, if tomorrow I am not allowed to play my videos here, then we will have a problem, Honorable Speaker. As a member of this House, we are tired with these frivolous points of orders, and yet he knows what the situation in this country is. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Charanke.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this statement on the road that is in Malindi, where you come from, Mombasa, Malindi. And I know this is your county. Mr. Speaker, we are proud of you as being the fourth speaker of this session. And Mr. Speaker, allow me to congratulate you for the successful presidential visit, which you and other colleagues did well in that region. And
point
I
of
know
order,
the future
Speaker.
Is bright, Mr. Speaker.
What is the point of order, Senator Sifuna?
But I'm just congratulating the Speaker.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 120 on relevance. I don't know or see any relevance of your weekend tours to the statement that has been brought forward by the Senator for Tana River, Mungatana. So these stories of the tours that have been done by the outgoing regime, please keep them out of this House, because we are not interested in those things. Let us address the issues that have been brought to the House, to the floor of the House. So he needs to demonstrate how relevant it is to the conversations that are, to the statement by Senator Mungatana.
Honorable Cherengei, you may proceed, please.
Thank you, Speaker. And in fact, I wanted to tie up, you know, the Senator of Nairobi should learn to listen. He always talks, so he should learn to listen. And Mr. Speaker, he should learn to listen, because I was saying, courtesy of the leadership tour led by you and His Excellency the President, these are some of the issues we should discuss about infrastructure within Kilifi and the larger coast. So that is the nexus, my brother. This is not a Wangamati funeral where you are speaking down on everybody. Mr. Speaker, and therefore, we must ensure that the budget, and I want to agree with your Senator Matzayo, who is a ranking member of this House, Mr. Speaker, that we need, and I want to confirm to the House, even in the budget, these are some of the engagements that we are doing within broad-based to ensure infrastructure, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, you are aware, as part of leadership of this country, that courtesy of the National Infrastructure Fund of 5 trillion Kenyan shillings, some of these roads will benefit from that, Mr. Speaker. And we hope when we visit you in Kilifi, which we have done on several occasions, these are some of the infrastructural structures, Mr. Speaker, that will be given in development of this country. And therefore, I want to thank the minority leader for bringing this issue up, Mr. Speaker. We will work together, and I know the CS of Transport, Davis Chirchir, who normally works in silence, will ensure that this road of Mombasa Malindi will be fixed. Because I have seen even in Nandi, Mr. Speaker, all my roads, he works in silence, Mr. Speaker. All my roads, including Chavakali to Kapsabet, is being fixed. Nandil Simaki is being fixed. Celia Kaiboi, Kapkatembu is being fixed, Mr. Speaker. The one from Timborua all the way to Kisumu, Mambo Leo, all the way to Kisumu, because Mr. Speaker is being worked. Even in Vihiga, there are a number of roads that we are fixing courtesy of Prime Cabinet Secretary, Mr. Speaker. So we are doing even in Mombasa, Mr. Speaker. We must ensure that the roads to Singapore remains unstoppable. Even the airport in Narok being worked, Mr. Speaker. Even in this city, we must ensure the roads are fixed. Even the one from northern Kenya, Mr. Speaker, all the way from Wajir, Kotulo, Tarbaj, all the way to Isiolo to Nairobi is being fixed, Mr. Speaker. Even in Embu, no one can tell us that it is a not outgoing regime. This is the regime that will take Kenya to Singapore, Mr. Speaker. The fact that you have many people attending your rallies in weekend, they are not votes. Ask some of us. The fact that you are in TikTok videos, that are not votes, Mr. Speaker. The journey to Singapore will remain unstoppable, Mr. Speaker. And we need roads that will ensure, Mr. Speaker. And I know under your leadership and the leadership of the President, we will go far, Dr. William Ruto, Mr. Speaker. The people like Senator Sifuna, wanaweza osha mkono, lakini hawatakula nyama, watasikia harufu. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I support these statements.
Senator Munyahaji.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia maombi ya taarifa kutoka kwa Senator Mazayo na vile vile kuomba maombi ya taarifa kutoka kwa Senator Mungatano. Mheshimiwa Spika, barabara ya Kilifi Mombasa Malindi ni barabara muhimu sana katika usafiri na miundombinu katika kaunti za Pwani. Mheshimiwa Spika, barabara hiyo ilianza kutengenezwa nafikiri kabla ya mwaka 2020 na mpaka sasa zaidi ya miaka 5, Mheshimiwa Spika, barabara hiyo bado haijakamilika. Mheshimiwa Spika, wenye magari wanaotumia barabara hiyo wanapata gharama kubwa za kurekebisha magari yao kwa sababu barabara ni mbovu katika hicho kipande cha kuanzia hapo Mzambarauni mpaka Kikambala kule Tana Sand. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, iko na umuhimu sana barabara hii kwa watu wa Kilifi na watu wa Mombasa kwa sababu mazao mengi yanayotoka Kilifi yanayokuja sokoni Mombasa yanapitia pale. Usafiri wa binadamu wanaokwenda Malindi, wanaokwenda Garissa, Mheshimiwa Spika, wanatumia barabara hiyo. Kwa hivyo ni makosa kwamba barabara hii imebakia bila kukamilishwa kwa muda wote ambao umekuwa, Mheshimiwa Spika. Tumeona barabara, kwa mfano hii barabara mpya ya Nakuru, wanakandarasi karibu 10 wako vipande tofauti Mheshimiwa Spika. Lakini mwanakandarasi yule, Mheshimiwa Spika, amekaa daraja la Mtwapa lile alikuwa anajenga, akazika mbuzi mzima, mpaka leo bado hajafanya chochote. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni masikitiko kwamba tuna mwanakandarasi kama yule ambaye anaendelea kupoteza wakati barabara ingekuwa imekamilika kufikia sasa. Kuhusiana na kafyu iliyoko Lamu, Mheshimiwa Spika, kafyu hii Mheshimiwa Spika, kutoka itangazwe mpaka sasa ni zaidi ya miaka 10. Miaka 12 na sahihishwa. Na kila mwaka inaendelea. Na sisi tunajua kisheria kwamba kafyu ina muda maalumu. Na ile gazette notice ambayo inatangaza ile kafyu, Mheshimiwa Spika, lazima iletwe katika bunge. Aidha bunge la kitaifa pamoja na bunge la Senate, kwa sababu tuliona wakati wa COVID notice zote za gazeti ambazo zililetwa kuhusiana na vizuizi vya wananchi kutembea ama kuzuri maeneo tofauti ambavyo vilikuwa vimewekwa wakati ule, zilikuwa zile notice za gazeti zote zinaletwa bunge, tunaziangalia kama kama bunge, kamati ya delegated, kamati ya usalama inaangalia, baadaye wanawapa nafasi ya kuendelea ama kuzikataa. Lakini mheshimiwa, kafyu hii mheshimiwa Spika, miaka 12 mimi nimekuwa katika bunge hili kwa zaidi ya miaka 8 sasa, na mpaka leo hatujaona hiyo kafyu ya Lamu kuletwa hapa ili iweze kujadiliwa na kuonekana je, inafaa ama haifai. Mheshimiwa Spika, kumalizia ni kwamba kuna maeneo mengine ambayo yana changamoto nyingi za kiusalama, lakini hatuoni kafyu huko. Na hala kafyu ikiwekwa haiwi ya miaka 12, ni kafyu ya miezi 2, miezi 3, ikienda sana ni miezi 6, na baadaye watu wanaruhusiwa kwenda na biashara zao bila ya matatizo. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii.
Senator Mundigi.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipa nafasi niweze kuchangia mjadala ambayo unaendelea wa minority leader kuhusu parapara kutoka Mombasa mpaka Kilifi na mpaka Lamu. Bwana Spika, yangu ni kusema serikali ya Kenya Kwanza imejaribu, kwa sababu tunajua karibu mwezi moja kontrakta wengi wamelipwa pesa, lakini kontrakta wengine wamesembea kazini. Ningeomba watu wote ambao wamelipwa pesa waweze kurudi kazini, na pia wizara ya parapara iweze kuangalia wale kontrakta ambayo wamesembea kazini, kwa sababu tumeona watu wengi parapara nyingi zimekwama. Ningeomba waweze kurudi ndio mwananchi aweze kuserekea kwa hii serikali, kwa sababu pia tunaomba pia ndio carriage kutoka hapa Nairobi mpaka Keno, na pia expressway kona zote kutoka Makutano kwenda Meru, kwa sababu wakati hawa contractor watafanya kazi haraka ndivyo usuri itaweza kupatikana, ndio ukute akutakuwa na ukumbufu ya pesa sitakuwa nyingi, ndio isara zote iweze kuonekana. Bwana Spika, pia naunga mkono ambaye parua ya Senator Aminda Kibwana kuhusu uimbaji wa watoto. Ningetaka kufahamisha Senator wa Nairobi ambaye ni Senator Sifuna ambaye ni minority leader wa 2032 katika serikali ile itakayokuja, ati serikali ni mimi na wewe. Na kama sisi yenyewe tunaona watoto wanaimbiwa na uwezi kusema, kwani itakuwa ni rais ameimba watoto ama ni mimi ama ni mkubwa wa security, haitawezekana. Kwa hivyo ningeomba tuwe na hutu, mimi na wewe na ule mwingine, tukiona kitu yote imefanyika tuweze kusema vile mtoto ameimbiwa, na pia serikali injaribu kuleta vifaa vile watoto wakiripotiwa vile wataweza kuonekana. Lakini
Senator Majayo.
Asante mstahiki Speaker. Mstahiki Speaker, kwanza nataka kupatia kongole dada yangu Hamida kwa taarifa aliyoileta kuhusikana na upoteaji ama kuuawa kwa watoto wadogo. Mstahiki Speaker, swala hili la kwamba watoto wanaibiwa ama wanapotea ama wanapatikana wakati ikiwa wamekufa ni swala la kusikitisha sana, kwa sababu mzazi ambaye amepoteza mtoto wake mchanga haezi kujua amekwenda wapi na hatimaye pengine ampate ama simpate. Janga linaingia katika familia. Mstahiki Speaker, ni jambo pia la kusikitisha kuona ya kwamba kuua mtoto wa mwenzako ama kudai mtoto wa mwenzako ni wako ni kama sasa kusema katika zile hadithi za alfu lela ulela kwamba aweza kupata mtoto si wako, lakini ukasema kama si wangu basi hatakuwa wako. Huyu mtoto kama kuna kesi useme basi akatwe katikati, huyo mtoto atapotea, hakutakuwa na mtoto tena. Kwa hiyo jambo kama hili ni jambo la huzuni sana. Nataka pengine kusema ya kwamba ingekuwa jukumu la serikali kuona ya kwamba hakuna mtoto atapotea, hakuna mtoto atapatikana amekufa, ili kila mtu aonekane. Katika katiba tunasema uhai unatunzwa na serikali. Kwa hiyo mtoto mdogo akipotea linakuwa jukumu la serikali kumtafuta na kumrejesha kwa mamake. Na jambo la kusikitisha ni kwamba tunapata watoto kama hawa wanapatikana wamekufa. Kwa hiyo ni jukumu kubwa sana kuangalia kuona ya kwamba serikali imejihusisha vilivyo, kuona ya kwamba nyumba na nyumba ingine na nyumba zingine zote katika nchi yote ya Kenya hakuna mzazi ambaye atapoteza mtoto wake. Hakuna aliyependa apate mtoto wake amekufa. Asante Bwana Speaker.
Senator Mungatana.
Asante Bwana Spika. Mimi nilikuwa nataka kuongea kuhusu barabara kuu kutoka Mombasa kwenda Kilifi hadi Malindi. Bwana Spika, sisi watu wa Tana River huwa tunakuza maembe mengi sana. Na haya maembe soko letu kubwa liko Mombasa. Imekuwa mtihani Bwana Spika kubeba maembe kutoka Tana River ufike Malindi, alafu kutoka Malindi ilikuwa barabara ni nzuri. Sasa mkandarasi huyu aliyeingia sasa imekuwa miaka na mikaka Bwana Spika, hamalizi kazi. Imekuwa mtihani sasa. Wakulima wetu wa maembe wanapata shida, malori yanaharibika njiani. Kwa hivyo nasimama kabisa kuunga mkono hili wazo la kuwa kamati ya bunge husika wachunguze, wapate kisa haswa na kina chake ni nini. Kwa nini hii barabara haimaliziki na haimaliziki kwa wakati? Tena Bwana Spika, ni kama Mombasa kuna shida, kwa sababu wakati walipokuwa wanajenga ile barabara kwenda airport, nayo imeenda miaka na mikaka. Barabara ya airport haimaliziki, kila siku watu ni traffic jam, imekuwa shida. Alafu sasa kule kulipomalizika imeingia sasa upande huu wa Mtwapa. Kwa hivyo tunataka kamati iangalie hii statement bwana, inatuadhiri sana, na tunataka ipewe upaumbele. Ikiwezekana waikalie haraka, tujue ukweli wa mambo ni nini. Sisi watu wa hii Tana River, kutoka Lamu, kutoka Kilifi County, sote tunaumia kwa sababu soko letu kubwa liko Mombasa. Asante Bwana Speaker.
Now, Honorable Senators, we have spent more than the 15 minutes that I had allocated to this comment session. We will therefore move to the next order. Clerk.
Order number 8, motion, alteration of the Senate calendar for the 50th session.
Senate Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that notwithstanding the resolution of the Senate made on the 17th of February 2026, approval of the Senate calendar, and pursuant to Standing Order number 32-4, the Senate resolves to alter its calendar for the 5th session in respect to Part 3, so as to proceed on recess on Friday 19th, 2026, and resume its 6 sittings on Tuesday, the 14th of July, 2026. Mr. Speaker, this has come as a request from the Liaison Committee on a number of committees that have got backlog in works that are pending before them, and saying relying on this system of meeting only once, twice, or at most 3 times in a week, actually twice at most for most committees, Mr. Speaker, and as we are drawing near the end of this term of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, many of them will complete the term without returning valuable work, some of which is very Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and request that he seconds.
Asante Mstahiki Spika, mimi naunga mkono.
Senator Fernandi, take your seat, please. Honorable Senators, I will now propose the question. That notwithstanding the resolution of the Senate made on the 17th of February 2026, approval of Senate calendar, and pursuant to Standing Order 32-4 of the Senate, resolves to alter its calendar for the 5th session, 2026, in respect of Part 3, so as to proceed to recess from Friday 19th of June, 2026, and to resume regular sittings on Tuesday 14th of July, 2026. Now, honorable senators, of course, the floor is open to debate, but this being a procedural motion, with your concurrence, then I may proceed to put the question. Do I have your concurrence? Thank you. I will therefore proceed to put the question. That notwithstanding the resolution of the Senate made on 17th of February 2026, approval of Senate calendar and will as many as are the contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, the Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 3 of 2024, second reading.
The Senate Majority Leader.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 3 of 2024, be now read a second time. Mr. Speaker, this is, I think, the third or the fourth Statutory Instrument Amendment Bill that we are moving this cycle, and it's a bit untidy, but unfortunately, work has to be done. You'd recall, Mr. Speaker, that as part of the NADCO process, we came with a very comprehensive amendment to various sections, actually, of our Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill. Subsequent to that, I think there was a High Court decision on certain elements of the Statutory Instruments Act, which our counterpart House, Mr. Speaker, had included in our omnibus amendment bill, and the court held that that was illegal, and therefore, as a consequence of that, they began another bill which we concluded on, and that was assented, I think, sometimes last year. There is a statutory instrument bill also that is before the committee of the whole of this House, another one separate to this, and this space is getting a bit more crowded, and I wish, Mr. Speaker, we could do better and amalgamate. It's something which I hope maybe our Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, because they have interacted and I've seen their reports on the one, this is number 3, yes. I've seen their report on number 2 and number 3. Number 2 is the one that is before the committee of the whole. I think we've done the amendments and reported progress. We need to vote on it. Then there's this one now, number 3 of 2024, Mr. Speaker, which I have equally seen what the Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs is proposing to the House, Mr. Speaker, that there are certain things they disagree with in principle and how they wish this be pursued. More neater way, Mr. Speaker, to deal with this, because we've had in the past instances where a bill that speaks to the same topic comes in quick succession to the House for amendment. It can confuse even stakeholders, because somebody may end up reading and thinking, we gave our submissions just the other day, and they missed the little fine print of determining or knowing whether this is number 2 or number 3. But given that what this bill seeks to achieve, Mr. Speaker, my proposal, which after moving this bill I'll be making to Justice and Legal Affairs, is to find ways in which you can collapse, perhaps through the amendment at the committee of the whole stage, Mr. Speaker, so that we have one bill carry all the proposed amendments instead of carrying it as 2 bills. I know the challenge, Mr. Speaker, is that the one that is in number 2 is a Senate bill, and this is a National Assembly bill. In fact, if you ask me, Mr. Speaker, whichever carries the favor of the House will still be fine, because either way, the bill must go through both houses of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. So, what is it that is contained in this Statutory Instrument Amendment Bill, Bill number 3 of 2024? This bill, Mr. Speaker, was published in the Kenya Gazette Supplement, number 27 of 2024. And the principal object is to amend the provisions of the Statutory Instruments Act 2013
This is part of the acts that were quickly rushed at the rise of the, I think that is the 11th Parliament, the first session of the bicameral session of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, where many bills were being passed to try and conform the country to the demands and the spirit of the new constitution. And therefore, there are a number of such bills, many times, many afternoon. If you listen as I move bills here, Mr. Speaker, it is to amend bills that as early as 2013, Mr. Speaker, is when they were done. And then subsequently people discover that, oh, this is going to present this challenge or the other, and so on and so forth. And that process of cleaning up will take a while. I don't think even in the life of this Parliament or the next one we'll have concluded, because the law is a living thing, Mr. Speaker. And there are things which may be the obtaining position as of today, but in subsequent days, new information come in or people perceive or think of things differently. That's why as a Parliament, that is our duty. Mr. Speaker, we must always be alive, willing, and ready as a House to rise to the challenge of the demands of our population in terms of conforming our laws to the dictates of what the situation is in the country. Significant provisions of this bill, Mr. Speaker, particularly those that are contained in Clause 4, Clause 5, and Clause 7, were carried and incorporated in the Bill number 2, the one I talked about of 2023. Bill number 1 of 2023, which I had mentioned earlier, is already assented and is an act of Parliament. However, Mr. Speaker, there are certain provisions in the bill, this present one now, that were not carried, and in particular, that is Clause 6 and Clause 8, which address the lapse and the continued operation of statutory instruments and provisions as follows. And this is where it gets interesting, because if you read the report of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, which is in our tablets, Mr. Speaker, they particularly take great exception to this Clause 6, which calls for a repeal of Section 21 of the Act, which provides for automatic revocation of statutory instruments 10 years after the instrument was made, and the manner and the duration for which the life of a statutory instrument may be extended. This is a very complicated matter, because we are talking about matters that are in the thousands, because statutory instruments contain regulations governing so many things. Basically, these are the nuts and bolts of government. It dictates how this or the other item is handled, how this office operates, including us here in Parliament. We have our own instruments which we must adhere to. And therefore, Justice and Legal Affairs Committee argues, and I'm sure there are members of that committee who are in the House, and hopefully they will be patient enough to contribute so that we benefit from their wisdom, Mr. Speaker, or their perspective on this particular matter, that a blanket revocation goes against the spirit and the letter of our Constitution. That even if it was a proposal to carry it out department by department, then they would consider, because there are certain state departments that have got these statutory instruments in their thousands, and there are others, maybe one or two. But if you pass a law that wholeheartedly revokes the 10-year rule on all the statutory instruments, Mr. Speaker, then it will create some legal which provides that a statutory instrument that will otherwise stand automatically revoked on any date before the day of commencement of this provision shall continue to operate and to have effect as if the instrument has not been automatically revoked on that particular date, Mr. Speaker. And this seeks to address the legal uncertainty arising from statutory instruments that have already been deemed to have expired under the 10-year automatic revocation regime, which is a current obtaining legal framework, Mr. Speaker. And it introduces a saving and validating provision to ensure that any statutory instrument that would otherwise have stood automatically revoked before the commencement of this amendment continues in operation and has effect as if it had not been automatically revoked. I have seen this done with regulations. Sometimes we even, members of this Senator Mwenda Gataya's committee, delegated legislation, they come before us. You know, Mr. Speaker, that by operation of law, when the Cabinet Secretary submit regulations before us, we have a 30-day period within which to consider, to either accept or reject and make a determination on that particular matter. But many times I have seen the committee come and request us by way of motion, because that is the only way provided for in law. The House can extend time for itself, because that 30-day period is a time that we set for ourselves as a House, Mr. Speaker, and request that that matter maybe be considered for another 21 days. I saw such a request last week. I don't know on which regulations, and so on and so forth. Therefore, this clause 8 seeks to provide that kind of arrangement for this particular item. Therefore, it is therefore necessary for Parliament to consider these two clauses so as to provide clear provisions on when and how statutory instruments lapse, the circumstances in which they may continue. I don't believe, Mr. Speaker, that the converse is true, because there are people that argue, Mr. Speaker, that we should leave the law as is, that it doesn't matter. Once it lapses, it does. There are situations, times of epidemics, and we had this challenge. Those of you that were here during the COVID period, we had such challenge where it became difficult for the Houses of Parliament to physically convene, and we had to do certain extensions such as this on regulations and so many other things. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, even though you may not agree with the way in which this amendment proposes extension of life of statutory instruments, Mr. Speaker, I don't think it is right to say that we leave it as an open shut case, such that once the 10-year regime period lapses, as is the case right now, then it stands revoked, Mr. Speaker. There may be better ways of doing it, which is what I want to hear people say. That's why we are lawmakers, and we convince each other by way of reason, Mr. Speaker. I don't know if the Chair of Justice and Legal Affairs, I don't see him, but I'm sure there are members of that committee that are here, and they will guide us in their perspective. We'll also listen to the opinion of the rest of the members, Mr. Speaker, and I am particularly willing to be persuaded on how to better handle this particular situation, because while I see what the drafters and the originators of this bill wish to cure, Mr. Speaker, I am not particularly very comfortable with the way in which it is being proposed to be cured. And that's why we exist as a House, Mr. Speaker, because lawmaking is like sausage making, Mr. Speaker. It's not necessarily beautiful, but the product is nice and tasty at the end of it. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, we have to haggle around until we figure out a way of how to handle the situation. Mr. Speaker, with these remarks, I beg to move and request the Senator for Nandi, Senator Samson Cherargei, to second. I thank you.
Thank you, Majority Leader, for ably moving the Statutory Instruments Amendment Act 2024 from the National Assembly's Bill number 3 of 2024. Mr. Speaker, Senate is a good house, although we are bicameral, because all the laws that we have proposed from the National Assembly, we always give it a priority. But I hope our brothers in the principle of reciprocity would also fast track some of our bills. We wouldn't want, Mr. Speaker, to make National Assembly a graveyard of Senate bills, and I hope under your leadership and Senate Business Committee, it should come to their attention, because one of my bills has stayed in the National Assembly for quite some time. So, Speaker, the statutory instruments, you know, the definition of statutory instrument is that it is an order or a rule of any decision-making of entity that we have given powers, Mr. Speaker. Article 94, 96, and of course Article 93, which defines Parliament as both the Senate and the National Assembly. The reading of Article 94, 96, one of our cardinal rule, or the important critical rule of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, is the lawmaking. And therefore, we must guard it jealously. Because, Mr. Speaker, the moment we lose touch with the lawmaking process, we are no longer Parliament. And you know, Mr. Speaker, in the principle, Thomas Aquinas, Mr. Speaker, and J.J. Rousseau, the power we enjoy is a power that was donated and delegated. And therefore, when we pass a law in this House, the Statutory Act demands that the Cabinet Secretary or the entity given power, they must give rules and regulations through the power of statutory, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, it is very important that as a House, we must guard this. Mr. Speaker, I have expected the Committee of Delegated Legislation, which I will listen to, and a number, I'm told the Attorney General appeared on a number of occasions before the Senate, Mr. Speaker, and they tried the rules and regulations that were passed 10 years ago that we give blanket check, Mr. Speaker. You will be overtaking the cardinal rules of national values and principles of good governance, which includes public participation and includes parliamentary scrutiny, which is one of the objects in Section 4 of the Statutory Instruments Act, Mr. Speaker, of Parliament of the Republic of Kenya. And the public participation and the explanatory memorandum, which then, for example, in 10 years, in 2015, might not have been given by a cabinet secretary at that given point in time. So, Mr. Speaker, the delegated committee, which have seen a number of members, and the Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs, Mr. Speaker, and it has to go on record that during my time, when I was the chair of JLAC, I was the top, followed by Senator Moses Kajwang then, when he was the chair in County Public Accounts, and I have left. And I think, as Senator Sifuna said in the morning, I should also be given flowers. Mr. Speaker, we would not allow, as a House, Mr. Speaker, to ensure, and Senator Faki was my member, Mr. Speaker, and we cannot allow, Mr. Speaker, that the process of lawmaking should be guarded. Mr. Speaker, the other day there were regulations on water, on cost, Mr. Speaker. We must review time to time. It cannot be, even it is not fair to the ministry, for example, if we were charging 2 shillings per litre or water tracking in estates 10 years ago, I thought it would be in the interest of the Cabinet Secretary of Water to bring that rules and regulation for review with the prevailing circumstances that have changed over time, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, looking at the introduction, because I'll just make a comment, this is a very brief bill, Mr. Speaker, an amendment which allow my colleagues, looking at the committee, there is an amendment of Section 11 where it says when it comes to the attention of the Cabinet Secretary to a statutory in accordance with subsection 6 within 7 days, Mr. Speaker, it must be gazetted within 7 days through Kenya Gazette. And Mr. Speaker, how many Kenyans can access Kenya Gazette? Mr. Speaker, I visited the printer, government printer, and it doesn't look very good. I hope in the budget they can allocate more funds to ensure efficiency of Kenya Gazette, because you and me, apart from being keen sometimes, Mr. Speaker, you might not see some of these regulations. And the Constitution has provided that after adequate public participation, we must ensure that, Mr. Speaker, that all Kenyans are able to access, that there is a nullity, and to submit notice to a Parliament on publication, and even put it in parliamentary website, Mr. Speaker. Because I think the reason the drafters of this amendment, Mr. Speaker, know that Parliament is mostly watched, is mostly looked after, is most assessed. You know, Mr. Speaker, if there is any job in this country, Mr. Speaker, that is properly assessed, Mr. Speaker, is Parliament. And therefore, we think in this proposal that it should be in parliamentary website, that the statutory instrument is a nullity. Mr. Speaker, because there is bad manners with some of the civil servants in this country. Especially, I know in law they know ignoration and maxima, where ignorance of the law is no excuse, Mr. Speaker. Some of the overzealous civil servants and the corrupt, which are a few in the civil service, can take advantage and use expired rules and regulations against wananchi, Mr. Speaker. So I want to appeal that in the interest of the country, we must ensure that in the parliamentary website, the statutory instrument is a nullity. I think we owe as a country, and I've said as a parliament, because as we interact with our people on daily basis. And I wish even in our meetings, Mr. Speaker, our political rallies, our engagements, we should take 1 or 2 times. Mr. Speaker, I rarely listen, Mr. Speaker, to be fair, of our colleagues even explaining that we have passed more money to counties. Yet it is our obligation, Mr. Speaker, because it's part of our as a members of parliament. Mr. Speaker, the report on resolution, the parliament shall stand annulled. And Mr. Speaker, we have had cases when expiry of rules and regulations has been done. It has a nullity, it is null and void. Mr. Speaker, this annulment must be published in public. And I have given the reason as to why. And therefore, and shall convey to the House to regulatory making authority. So you must notify Parliament that Parliament has annulled pertain regulations and rules under Statutory Amendment Act. And this is a good proposal, Mr. Speaker, which I think Senator Mungatana and colleagues in delegated must and should look at about, Mr. Speaker. And even members of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, should be aware there are many regulations that are normally passed without even notice of Parliament, Mr. And that is why I was raising the issue of Elections Amendment Act. That even Kenyans, they go to elections next year, they must elect members who understand, who comprehend, who are competent to know what lawmaking process is. Because sometimes it is embarrassing when you sit, Mr. Speaker, in a forum and you hear your colleague from Member of Parliament speaking up through the clerk of the House, relevant House, be it Clerk Nyekenye or Clerk Njoroge in the other side, and of course yours truly, Speaker Amason Kingi, should communicate in the Senate, or Speaker Moses Masika Wetangula should communicate in the National Assembly or the Laos. Mr. Speaker, upon the receipt of the communication from the clerk, this shall be gazetted within 14 days, and I hope the government printer will get enough resources, because sometimes most of these things are taken to government printer, but they don't get to that level, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Section 27, which I will finish my comments on, any statutory that was in operation and will otherwise stand automatically revoked on it before shall continue to operate and to have effect as if it had not been automatically revoked on the date. I think on this one, Mr. Speaker, this is unfair. While I agree with the rest, and therefore, the Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya, when he appeared before one of your committees, you know, if it is 10 years, as per the law has been provided, why would you automatically want to renew? It should start revoked. It should stand revoked. Because I have used an example. If you have traffic rules and regulations, Mr. Speaker, in 2015, there were no CCTV cameras on the roads. There was no newer models of vehicles. Although I'm told in the parking of the Senate, you only get Prado 120, 150. But when you go to the former house where my brother, Senator, Deputy Speaker is, you see high-end S500 Mercedes, GLE, LC300, Mr. Speaker, and 570 Lexus. But when you cross to the Senate, they look like MCS vehicles, Mr. Speaker. So this will change with time, Mr. Speaker, because I meet my colleagues at the parking. And some of the vehicles in the parking, I wish Senator Manzo was here, they normally have a permanent mechanic who try to fix some of those vehicles, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, so I'm just saying in an upshot, yeah, I'm right. In an upshot, Mr. Speaker, we must ensure they bring it back so that we don't automatically revoke. If it is automatic revocation, for example, if you are giving rules and regulations in 2015, Mr. Speaker, I know you were in Parliament before. Imagine the regulations about traffic then, when there were no speed guns. And now the Minister of Transport is telling us automatically renew in 2026. Yet technology, we have AI, Mr. Speaker. artificial intelligence. We have speed guns. We have CCTV in our corridors. Mr. Speaker, we have speed, other issues that have come with the changes, even in the usage of vehicles, Mr. Speaker. Some of the vehicles are now more advanced than the way we were in the Mercedes 1, 2, 3, 4, Mr. Speaker. So we must ensure that it cannot happen, and I want to appeal to Senate Majority Leader, although as I support the secondment, that we cannot allow automatic. You remember, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, in the last session, when you were the governor and Senator Mazai was your senator, I was around, Senator Olekina, Senator Faki was around. We used to keep update COVID regulations. Because the pandemic, imagine if Ebola today lands in Kenya, for example, we might need to update regulations after some time. Because of the changes, you remember during COVID regulations, Mr. Speaker, even as we prepare, and I want to ask your Committee of Health to start even preparing for rules and regulations on management of Ebola. Because Ebola is just next door in Uganda. There are 15 cases that have been reported, Mr. Speaker. We want to thank the government for ensuring that Malaba border, where you were, and you led us to Senate Mashinani, that the surveillance and quarantine facilities must be up to date. And I want to appeal also to Kenyans who are using Panya routes to access the country. Because I know not most of them come through Malaba and Malaba borders, the one that is in Sibania, the one that is in Namanga, Mr. Speaker. We must ask Kenyans to stop using, or anybody coming into the country, so that they can be screened, their temperature can be taken, Mr. Speaker. So it is not fair for my colleagues for political expediency to block the government, because we know the activists in court, Mr. Speaker, are being used by people who are playing politics. Those activists, Mr. Speaker, it is better, they say prevention is better than cure. You don't need to have a disease in the country to prepare. We know this disease is infectious, Mr. Speaker. And I hope when the rules and regulations will be brought by the chair, Senator Gwenda Gataya, on the prevention of Ebola disease and other pandemic, we should pass as a House, Mr. Speaker, because I know that is the next step, Mr. Speaker, and we should not live in isolation. Mr. Speaker, you and me know that Mombasa Port, all the way to DRC, is a corridor where drivers are using, Mr. Speaker. We must be alert. We must ensure that I have seen the PS of Health and the CS of Health, Aden Duale, as they give out, they will handle the issue of Ebola. They must bring those rules and regulations to the House, Mr. Speaker, so that we can sit and ensure we consider, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, on the automatic renewal or revocation of this matter, Mr. Speaker, you should not give him any point of order. These are serious issues I'm discussing. Mr. Speaker, these are life and death. You know, this guy thinks this is Linda Mwananchi matters. Mr. Speaker, or is it Linda Mwananchi in good faith? Mr. Speaker, and therefore, Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, since my neighbor is feeling uncomfortable, allow me to rest my case there as I second this statutory instrument amendment Act 2024, and I hope to listen to members of delegated, Mr. Speaker, and we can proceed as a country. But on the aspect of automatic renewal of rules and regulation as a House, Mr. Speaker, if we allow that, we lose our power, which is residual, which is the power that we have been given by Kenyans through the ballot. Even as we go in 2027, we expect more rules and regulation from even election, from pandemic and many other. This House, Mr. Speaker, must rise up to the occasion. And I want to thank, Mr. Speaker, because even the last session, Mr. Speaker, I know I thank you the other time and many people uncovered, but let me thank you properly this one, because it is under your guidance. You remember when we went for recess and there was a court ruling, especially on park reports, you created a process where there is automatic procedural processes on issues and even includes rules and regulations. So the delegated committee, Mr. Speaker, cannot have a reason not to consider rules and regulation that has been given by ministry when we are even in recess. Because of your Solomonic guidance and support, you have been able to allow our committees to function automatically. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, allow me to second this bill. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Olekina, kindly take your seat. Honorable Senators, I will now propose the question that the Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 3 of 2024, be now read a second time. The floor is now open for debate. Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to give my remarks on the Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill 2024. Mr. Speaker, as has been explained by the Majority Leader, these proposed amendments are supposed to do cleanup of the existing Statutory Instrument Act so that a number of provisions in that law are aligned with the Constitution of Kenya, and also to provide a framework for better application of the provisions in the current Act. Mr. Speaker, from the onset, I want to agree with the members who have spoken earlier that the power to make laws is the responsibility of Parliament. It is not the responsibility of any other person or body. And that clarity, I think, is very important, because we have seen so many instances where you see people coming up with the regulations, coming up with the rules, which they start implementing without the input of this House. Mr. Speaker, just about 2 weeks ago, in my own county, the police, the OCPD, and the county commander came up with some regulations to stop processions. You know, in my county, the youth, especially the boda, when they lose one of their own, they mourn that work rules, and they don't refer to this house. So I think it's a high time we must enforce the provisions of Statutory Instruments Act, so that it is only this House that has the powers to make law. Any other person who has responsibility to come up with delegated law, that law has to be approved by this House, Mr. Speaker. We have seen many cases, even within our ministries, where cabinet secretaries have come up with the regulations which are not approved by this House. I think the Committee on Delegated Legislation should be able to identify such regulations and annul them, because this law is very clear on the process of how to handle delegated legislation. Mr. Speaker, I also want to agree with Senator Cherargei. There should not be any situation that calls for automatic renewal of regulations. When regulations expire and they need to be renewed, they have to come to this House. Because, Mr. Speaker, scenarios change and conditions change, and that necessitates this House to have an input into those regulations before they become law. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to support these amendments and also agree with the Majority Leader that we have so many pieces of bills which have been proposed to amend the Statutory Instrument Act. I think it would be nice if all these are consolidated into one bill so that we can handle it once and for all. Mr. Speaker, speaking of Article 94(5) of the Constitution, that it requires that Parliament, that is Senate and National Assembly, has an input into the delegated legislation. Mr. Speaker, this House also has a responsibility that all agreements that are signed, between our government and another government to do anything must also be processed through this House. We are beginning to see a culture, Mr. Speaker, where the government is entering into agreements with other nations, either bilateral or multilateral agreements, and those agreements are not subjected for parliamentary scrutiny. I think the relevant committees must be out to watch. And it saddens me when you see a honorable member of either this House of the Senate or the National Assembly defending the government for not providing those agreements for scrutiny before the House. It is our responsibility to scrutinize every treaty or agreement that is signed between our nation and other nations. So, Mr. Speaker, I just emphasize that because even as we talk about statutory instruments, we should also talk about the treaties and other agreements that our nation has signed, which do not come to this House illegally. It is important we insist that such agreements have to be brought to this House. For example, Mr. Speaker, the G2G agreement, everyone in this country is asking what is contained in the G2G agreement. And we are not getting answers, Mr. Speaker. If the G2G agreement was brought to this House, Mr. Speaker, and there were issues that were going to affect the lives of our people, indirectly or directly, then this House will rise to the occasion. So I think it's important, as we discuss the statutory instrument law, we must also insist that all treaties, all agreements that affect our nation, even now we are talking about Ebola, and Senator Cheregei was trying to explain this matter. But we are asking, where was the agreement? Was it ever brought before the Houses of Parliament to be debated, to be scrutinized before it is approved? So, Mr. Speaker, we want a scenario where every agreement that is signed, a bilateral agreement, multilateral agreement, treaties, they must have an input of this House. And Mr. Speaker, you know I tried to raise a point of order when he was speaking, and I was not given a chance. So he should allow me to finish my statement before he brings his frivolous point of orders, Mr. Speaker.
Just a minute, Senator Osotsi.
Senator Osotsi, can you, on the first instance, Mr. Speaker, understanding Order 98, that there is no frivolous point of order in this House? I think since he was in the law house, he might not understand. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, understanding Order 105. No, but Chair is a respected Jurincheka elder. He is beyond Parliament. His level is another one. He talks with the higher beings. Mr. Speaker, standing Order 105. Is it in order for the distinguished Senator of Vihiga and one of the removed ODM deputy party leaders to allege on the House that the biosecurity agreement that was signed in 2015 should have been in the House, Mr. Speaker? Yet that biosecurity agreement that was signed between Kenya and America was done under President Uhuru Kenyatta. Mr. Speaker, is it in order to allege it was done the other day? Can he table evidence of such, Mr. Speaker? Or he withdraw and apologize, because biosecurity agreement is guarded under the Constitution, Article 26 of the Constitution, when international treaties and other instruments are signed, they become part of the law. Is he aware? Because I'm worried, Mr. Speaker, if he's not aware, when he appears in other Linda Mwananchi rallies, he might mislead the public.
What is your
My only concern, Mr. Speaker, is it in order for him to mislead the House that the biosecurity agreement was signed in 2015? It was not signed the other day. Can he look for President Uhuru Kenyatta to read that document?
Senator Ososi,
Mr.
maybe
Speaker,
your hand is a point of order. You can maybe clarify.
Mr. Speaker, government is a going concern. And I did not refer to specifically to the Kenya Kwanza government. I said government. And government is a going concern. Number two, Mr. Speaker, we are specifically referring to Ebola isolation center issue. So when you talk about biodiversity, there are by safety, there are many aspects of it in that agreement. So can you refer to that specific one, the Ebola isolation center? Is there an agreement, a specific agreement that was passed by this House, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, you know, if you allow Senator Cheraige, you know, he is the
Senator
chief.
Ososi, why are you addressing Senator
No, I just want Mr. Speaker to bring to your attention that sometimes you should not allow him to bring frivolous point of order, because this Senator Cheraige is a chief government propagandist. He comes to speak propaganda on the floor of the House. And Mr. Speaker, you allow them to come and prosecute their propaganda on this floor of the House. So, Mr. Speaker, allow me to finish my presentation.
Senator Ososi, you know why when you digress, as you also want to be protected, then it becomes difficult.
You know, Mr. Speaker,
so
Mr. Speaker,
between you and Senator Cheraige, both of you are now actually diverting to being out of order, both of you, because
Mr. Speaker, you know, standing order number 105 should not be misused.
As I'm giving guidance to the Honorable Senator who is here standing, can you sit down briefly? You should also not make noise from your side trying to direct me what to do, Senator Cheraige. So saying, Senator, also stop digressing. Stop using other ones to just to spice your discussion. Similarly, you are severally referring to Linda Mwananchi, which is not in this House. Can you also refrain? Because I don't think it is good to you or to your colleague if you use some language which is not palatable to your colleague. I don't think that is good enough for you to do it. So can you conclude, Senator Ososi?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You know you are going to debate about today. You are
Mr.
being diverted your mind by Senator Cheraige. Focus.
Mr. Speaker, we will have another opportunity to look at the issue of misuse of standing order number 105, particularly by my friend Cheraige. Let me finish by saying that this bill is timely, and Mr. Speaker, those amendments must be aligned to the Constitution, particularly Article 94(5), so that Parliament does not lose its authority to make law. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Next is Senator Mungatana Danson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to rise to oppose sections of these proposed amendments. And Mr. Speaker, some of the proposed clauses are very good, but I am very opposed to clause number 8. And in particular, Mr. Speaker, if I may read, clause 8 of this Statutory Instruments Amendment Act 2024, Senate National Assembly Bills number 3 of 2024, it Section 27 of the Principal Act is amended by inserting the following new subsection immediately after subsection 2, and it says, any statutory instrument that was in operation and that would otherwise stand automatically revoked on any day before the commencement of this provision shall continue to operate and to have effect as if the instruments had not been automatically revoked on that date. Mr. Speaker, this provision is giving regulatory making authority, like departments in the ministries, like parastatals, the power to make a regulation in 1964 and the same to be automatically renewed in 2026. Mr. Speaker, you can see the ridiculousness behind this proposed amendment. The Statutory Instruments Act, Mr. Speaker, requires that if as Parliament we donate our power to the minister to make regulations, then those regulations, if approved by Parliament and they are gazetted, those regulations will only be effective for a period of 10 years. After 10 years, that donated power must come back to this House through the Committee of Delegated Legislation, so that again we will look at the relevance of that power or that regulation that we gave to them. So, Mr. Speaker, it does not make sense, for example, for the Minister of Agriculture to make a regulation in 1963. And then, Mr. Speaker, after 1973, the same regulation automatically continues without that minister coming before Parliament to say, look, I need to extend these regulations and my reasons are this and that. And then the Delegated Legislation Committee will look at the reasonings that the minister is giving and agree or disagree. Mr. Speaker, what this law amendment is proposing is to make ministers another source of making law in this country, and to give them permanent powers to make law in this country. Mr. Speaker, this cannot hold. And I'm urging all members of this House, when it comes to the committee stage, let us oppose any section that is purporting to take away the power of lawmaking from the Senate and from the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, I'm even surprised that this bill is emanating from the National Assembly. How can you take away the power that was given to you by the Constitution and by the people of Kenya, that you will be the only person to make law, and then you donate this power, and then you say it is permanent to the minister who is proposing a regulation or a rule? Mr. Speaker, maybe I want to give a background. In the delegated legislation of the Senate Committee, the then Attorney General J.B. Muturi sent one of his officers, and he sought to extend about 10,000 regulations, which had about 10,000 regulations which had already lapsed after the mandatory statutory period of 10 years. So, Mr. Speaker, yes, I will yield because he's a member, yes?
Mr. Speaker, sir, the number of regulations were 1,764 or 1,735, not 10,000. There were 1,000 760 or thereabouts, but not 10,000.
So, Mr. Speaker, okay, you can inform also if you...
Senator Gatara.
Thank you, Chair. I want to inform my member, Senator Mugatana, those regulations were close to what Honorable Faki is saying. They were about 1,668.
So, Mr. Speaker...
So which is which?
Mr. Speaker, either way, they were about 1,000. In my mind, they were about 10,000. But, Mr. Speaker, we were sitting in that committee. The Attorney General wants over 1,000 regulations to be extended from different ministries. Mr. Speaker, if you look at how this works, those ministers did not come before the Senate delegated committee to ask for the extension. Those ministers did not come to give justifications why they want those regulations that are 10 years old to be extended. Those ministers were hiding behind the Attorney General and saying because the Attorney General is the lawyer for the government, then he can represent us. But Mr. Speaker, we took a very firm stand as the Senate Delegated Legislation Committee that the Attorney General cannot purport to come and seek an extension for over 1,000 regulations without the regulation-making authority itself presenting itself before the committee and justifying why they needed those extensions. Mr. Speaker, we rejected. So what do? They went back. The Attorney General of Kenya went back because it is an office that is in succession. The current Attorney General now thinks that the only way to deal with this problem, instead of the ministers presenting themselves before the committee of the Senate, let us remove this, let us make the extension automatic, because we rejected it at that time. So, Mr. Speaker, if our colleagues in this Senate can see what we are seeing, some of these regulations were very oppressive, some of these regulations were outdated, they cannot keep up with even the current state of technology. How can a minister just say the regulation he set up 10 years ago should automatically start again? Mr. Speaker, this automatic renewal is what we are against, and we are urging this Senate that we must reject this statutory amendment proposition. We must stand firm. We must not yield this power. And I'll give you a reason. We go through a very long process in this House to make law. We go through first reading, we go through second reading, and we debate, we persuade each other in second reading. Then we go to committee. And in committee, we also debate those amendments. We approve or refuse those amendments. Then we go to third reading, where there is also another opportunity to debate. Then after that, that process takes us to the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. And the National Assembly goes through the same processes before it goes to the President. Mr. Speaker, can you imagine a situation? We now create space for the Cabinet Secretary to make regulation. And then this Cabinet Secretary, they come with these regulations before our committee. When they come before the Senate committee, they have not followed the steps. They have not followed public participation. Mr. Speaker, they have not advertised in the newspapers. Some of those regulations have not even complied with the provisions of the Constitution. So we look at those regulations and we tell them, look, in the parent act that gave you this power, you are supposed to follow these steps. And some of the ministers, Mr. Speaker, some of the cabinet secretaries are notorious. They just don't follow the law as it is required. So we send them back. We tell them we cannot approve this. So even some of them are very good, Mr. Speaker. I don't want to mention names here, but some cabinet secretaries who have been members of this House,
whenever they are brought before the Senate Delegated Legislation Committee, they have performed. But some of them are not performing. So, Mr. Speaker, imagine this situation. These people who have been given this authority by this House are not following what is required. And then, Mr. Speaker, the same people, maybe that regulation was passed because maybe the committee at that time were not keen enough. 10 years ago, 2 parliaments away, 2 senates away. And then now, the same regulation automatically becomes renewed. Mr. Speaker, that is not acceptable. So, Mr. Speaker, I am urging the House to totally reject this amendment that is proposed here under Clause 8. I am urging colleagues to refuse completely. And let us begin, because I've already seen here that the majority leader has written proposed amendments and at the committee stage. And those amendments will have the effect of giving the Clause 8 power. It will give it effect. So let us be vigilant. When we come to committee of the whole, let us reject these amendments. In fact, Mr. Speaker, let us file our own amendments to those amendments, deleting those proposed amendments. We must reject, because we cannot give this power to regulation-making authority. Why? Mr. Speaker, some of the regulations are very punitive. Our people are being told to pay some charges. For example, Mr. Speaker, you know, you want to extract water, you pay this amount, you pay that, you pay that. So imagine if after 10 years, without justification, those regulations are renewed. Mr. Speaker, I am only debating this clause, and I'm saying again and again, it must sink in the Senate. Those who are following are online, and those who are in the House, that, Mr. Speaker, we must reject Clause 8, and we must file amendments to the proposed amendments that will give effect to this Clause 8 of this bill. We must unite for the sake of our people, because this one is obviously because the Senate Delegated Committee rejected the then Attorney General's approach. So he has gone there and crafted something to make automatic renewal of regulations. It's wrong. It's against the spirit of the Constitution. The people who make laws are the senators and the members of parliament, not the Attorney General, not the cabinet secretaries. We only donate this power, and you must follow what is supposed to be done. And then if it has stayed for 10 years, surely that must come again back to the Senate and to the National Assembly for review. So we must not let this pass, Mr. Speaker, on principle. We must reject this, and I strongly, Mr. Speaker, reject Clause 8. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Ndani Manzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm one of the members of the Committee of Delegated Legislation, and I want to give the genesis of this. Mr. Speaker, you and myself have served at the National Assembly for 10 years, and the Statutory Instruments Act came to power 2013, and therefore by 2023, a lot of statutory instruments expired. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, this was sneaked in the Finance Bill 2024, which was rejected by the people of Kenya. It was deleting Section 21 of the Statutory Instruments Act, Mr. Speaker, which says that upon, statutory instruments last 10 years. And what ministers do, or cabinet secretaries then, who have a problem reorganizing the statutory instruments because they need, they will be needing public participation, what they do is they should come to the committee, and they have done that over the years, just before the instruments expire and seek extension. That happened to one time. The CS for Agriculture came before the committee, sought extension, and they had enough time to make new regulations. The reason is most of the regulations, Mr. Speaker, under this, they are regulations which seek or more payments from the services offered through different acts of parliament. And therefore, they are taxes, Mr. Speaker. Is another way of giving a blanket, opportunity to tax Kenyans, without public participation, without proper consultation, and it's actually excess taxes. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the issue of making an amendment under 8 to make sure that these regulations automatically become law or are automatically extended, some of them expired in 2023. And therefore, you cannot now make legislation now to bring back to life regulations which died 2023. It will be an absurdity, is an illegality. Kenyans will go to court and annul this particular piece of legislation. So, Mr. Speaker, I have seen a similar amendment also. Another amendment bill which is seeking to delete 21. It has got the same effect. And in fact, any other amendments around here, in fact, I've seen the one reducing the fine. From what the fine used to be, if you break these rules, 1 million shillings is being reduced to 20,000 shillings. Meaning, whoever was being punished for breaking the law, then will have it very easy escape. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to support Senator Mugatana, his submissions, and I believe other members of this committee will support and say that the statutory instruments should be rejected. We are going to bring in amendments and delete all this section, Mr. Speaker, so that at the third reading, so that this bad law does not go to the public. If they tried in 2024 to sneak it through the finance bill, a matter which does not touch finances or remotely deals with finances, Mr. Speaker, I really urge the House to reject these laws. They are going to be punitive to the society. Kenyans have been overtaxed. The cost of living is high, and I cannot stand in this Senate and pass a law which is going to see Kenyans taxed more than they are being taxed today. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I reject.
Okay. Senator Mwinyi Haji Faki. Senator Faki.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii.
Kwanza tumpatie mwenyekiti atupe ushauri kidogo, alafu ana jukumu lingine.
Give me the mic. From the onset, Honorable Speaker, I have captioned quite a number of presentations made by members of this House, especially members of the Delegated Committee. Honorable Speaker, we are under very rough time, especially in this committee, where I remember in one particular case, Honorable Speaker, we received some regulations which were effected way back in 1968 on National Construction Authority. Those regulations, Honorable Speaker, came to this committee close to almost like 50 years, around 2024. Honorable Speaker, one would imagine the number of changes that have been going around, where quite a number of buildings doesn't adhere to very many provisions, including the disability, including the firefighting equipments, the fire exits, and so forth. There are so many changes, Honorable Speaker, that have been effected from 1963. So I want to oppose this arrangement, especially Clause 8, which Honorable Mugatana has prosecuted very, very strongly, that we are supposed to expunge the provision where the regulations are supposed to expire, are not supposed to expire after 10 years. It will be very detrimental, Honorable Speaker, because within a period of 10 years, we expect a lot of changes, especially on the regulations that touches on maybe taxation, and so many other issues to do with those statutory instruments. Honorable Speaker, we have seen also some cases where the entities, the regulatory forming bodies, especially the ministries, the departments, even the counties, they have gone to make their own regulations without adhering to those checklists. We have the public participation, we have the impact assessment, we have even questioned the new arrangement where the entities would maybe go through the MyGov. MyGov is a Kenyan Gazette arrangement which is not even widely circulated. We have even seen some ministries who would go there and do some post-publication even without engaging the committees. And we have been finding it very difficult to engage those bodies. So, Honorable Speaker, if we do a checklist, especially these departments and ministries, and even in counties, we have been taking our domestic travel around the counties to educate even our brother members of county assemblies on how to check on regulations that does not adhere to the Parent Act. So, Honorable Speaker, it will be very, 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 very detrimental to this House, because, Honorable Speaker, when we talk of delegatory legislation, we are saying that we have donated these powers to those regulation-making authorities, the ministries, the departments, even the counties. So, Honorable Speaker, I would urge the House to make sure that this clause is deleted so that we don't have to create a situation where a ministry would just come and bring regulations. Those regulations will be there for more than 10 years, for more than 20 years. And you know, Honorable Speaker, we expect a lot of changes along the way. 10 years is such a long time. 20 years is such a long time. We can't allow regulations to exist with the people for all those more than 10 years. That's why we have this provision where, as a House, we must donate those powers to the ministry, to departments, to counties, even through the county assemblies, to make sure that once those regulations are effected, within 10 years, we are supposed to come back to the House to make sure that those regulations are moderated, to see whether there are some other issues that have just come up, so that we can make sure that they align with the Parent Act. So, Honorable Speaker, I support this arrangement, Honorable Speaker, but with this strong arrangement that we are not supposed to allow this expiry of 10 years not to be considered. I support, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Mwinyi Faki.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia mswada wa marekebisho ya sheria ya kanuni za kisheria, yani statutory instruments. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwanza kabisa ningependa kujiunga na maseneta wenzangu ambao wamechangia awali mswada huu. Ya pili, sina pingamizi za kimsingi kwa kifungu cha kwanza, cha pili, cha nne na cha tano. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, nina pingamizi sana kwa kifungu cha 8 ambacho kinaipa wizara ama shirika linalotengeneza hizi kanuni kwa ziendelee baada ya miaka 10, kinyume na sheria ambayo iko sasa kwamba zile kanuni zinakwisha baada ya miaka 10. Mheshimiwa Spika, lengo na madhumuni ya kanuni ni kusaidia kuendesha sheria. Hizi zinaitwa kule kwingine zinaitwa sheria endelevu, kwa sababu zinatumika kuziwekea nguvu zile sheria ambazo bunge linapitisha. Na sheria hizi mara nyingi zinatengenezwa na wizara ama zinatengenezwa na shirika ambalo linahusika na taasisi fulani ama linahusika na huduma fulani, kwa mfano huduma za maji, huduma za afya na hali kadhalika. Na kwa vile bunge halina wakati wa kuweza kuangalia hizi mambo madogo madogo, mambo haya huachiwa ile wizara ama huachiwa ile shirika liweze kutengeneza kanuni, baadaye zinaletwa hapa katika bunge, zinaweza kuthibitishwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, katika kuthibitisha hizi kanuni huwa tunaangalia mambo kadhaa. Kwanza, je, zinakinzana na katiba? Zinakinzana na ile sheria ambayo imeziunda? wamefanya uhusishaji wa umma, yani public participation. Je, sheria hizi zinakinzana na haki za binadamu na mambo mengine ambayo yamewekwa katika sheria? Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia hizo zote, tukiona kwamba kila kitu kiko sawa, ndio pale tunaweza kupitisha sheria zile na zinatumika kwa muda wa miaka 10. Hii Mheshimiwa Spika, sio Kenya peke yake, hata zile nchi nyingine kama vile Uingereza ambao tumekopa sheria zetu nyingi kutoka kwao, sehemu za Australia pia ambapo tumekopa sheria zao, zote zina maisha ya miaka 10 kuweza kusimamia sheria hizi. Kwa hiyo miaka 10 ikisha, Mheshimiwa Spika, sheria zimekufa, na kuna fursa iwapo wizara ama shirika litaweza kuomba muongezeko wa mwaka mmoja au miezi 12 ili waweze kujipanga ndio waweze kutengeneza sheria mpya. Mheshimiwa Spika, hii ni muhimu kwa sababu inatoa fursa ya serikali na wizara kuweza kufanya ile review ama kuziangalia upya kila baada ya miaka 10. Kwa hivyo hii ni jambo zuri ambalo liko katika sheria hii, na hivi sasa linataka kuondolewa ili zile sheria ziweze kutumika muda nenda miaka rudi bila ya kuwa na nafasi yoyote ya kuweza kuziangalia upya. Kwa mfano Mheshimiwa Spika, mwaka 2023 kama alivyosema Mheshimiwa Mungatana, mkuu wa sheria aliandika barua hapa kutaka kuzihuisha ama kutaka kuzifufua sheria karibu 1760. Baadhi ya hizi sheria Mheshimiwa Spika zilikuwa zinahusiana na mambo ambayo yalikuwa hayamo tena katika nchi yetu. Kwa mfano kulikuwa na moja ambayo inahusiana juu ya kuunganishwa pamoja benki mbili, banki ya Greenlays International na banki nyingine Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hivyo sheria kama hizo zilikuwa zimetumika na wakati wake umekwisha. Kwa hivyo ilikuwa hakuna haja ama hakuna sababu ya kuzirejesha, lakini kwa sababu kulikuwa na utepetevu katika ofisi ya mkuu wa sheria, hawakuweza kuziangalia kwa undani, wakataka sheria zote ziwekwe katika basi moja ziweze kupitishwa bila ya kufuata kanuni. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, hii marekebisho haya ya kutaka kuondoa hii miaka 10 itakuwa imeregesha nyuma mambo mengi, kwa sababu zile sheria zote ambazo tulizikataa Mheshimiwa Spika, zile 1700 zote zitarejea tena ziwe ni sheria katika nchi yetu, na nyingine Mheshimiwa Spika zilifanywa kabla ya ugatuzi. Hii sheria ya kanuni hizi Mheshimiwa Spika, Statutory Instruments Act, ilipitishwa mwaka 2013. Kwa hivyo zile sheria zote ambazo zilikuwa zimepitishwa nyuma ya hii sheria, ina maana kwamba zitapata uhai mpya, hivyo basi zitaweza kuingia na kuweza kutumika. Baadhi ya mambo ambayo tumeweza kuyaona Mheshimiwa Spika ni kwamba baadhi ya wizara, japokuwa huduma zinazofanyika zimegatuliwa, baadhi ya wizara Mheshimiwa Spika hupuuza bunge hili katika kuleta kanuni katika bunge. Hivi majuzi Mheshimiwa Spika tumeona baadhi ya sheria zilizopitishwa katika wizara ya uchukuzi hazikuweza kufika katika bunge hili. Sheria nyingine za wizara ya ardhi vile vile pia haziweza kufika katika bunge hili. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, zile zote ambazo zimekwisha hivi sasa, muda wake umekwisha. Ikiwa tutakubali hii sheria Mheshimiwa Spika, ina maana kwamba zitarejea tena upya, zipate uhai mpya, na hivyo sasa itakuwa ni kuendelea milele na milele. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi naunga mkono baadhi ya vipengee katika sheria hii, lakini napinga vikali kabisa kifungu cha 8 kuhusiana na kuondolewa kwa muda wa kuhudumu wa sheria hizi. Mwisho Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna jambo la msingi ambalo lingefaa liweze kuangaliwa. Kwa mfano, kuna zile kanuni ambazo huletwa katika bunge hili na pia zikapelekwa katika bunge la kitaifa. Labda sisi tumeamua kuzikataa, lakini bunge la kitaifa limesema ziko sawa. Kwa hivyo kama sheria nyingine yote inatakana kuwe na ile inaitwa mediation baina haya mabunge mawili ili waweze kuangalia tofauti ziko wapi. Lakini sheria yetu kwa sasa Mheshimiwa Spika haina kifungu ambacho kinatoa nafasi ya mediation. Na kwa vile mara nyingi ile sheria inatakana ipitishwe na bunge, yani parliament, mara nyingi zile sheria hupotea kwa sababu hakuna nafasi ya kuweza kuleta mediation ama uwiano baina ya bunge la kitaifa na bunge la Senate kuhusiana na hizi sheria za hizi kanuni ambazo zinatengenezwa na wizara pamoja na mashirika katika wizara hizo. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ipo haja ya sheria kurekebishwa ili kuwe na nafasi ya kuhakikisha kwamba iwapo mabunge mawili haya yatatofautiana, tuweze kupata nafasi ya kuweza kupata mediation na kuunganisha yale ambayo yamekosekana ili sheria ile iweze kukubalika na iweze kutumika. Mheshimiwa Spika, naunga mkono mswada huu, lakini kipengele cha 8 cha sheria hii lazima kiondolewe na ibaki vile vile kuwa sheria ama kanuni zinazopitishwa zinazotengenezwa na mashirika ya kiserikali ziishi kwa muda wa miaka 10 zitakapopitishwa. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa nafasi hii.
Next is Senator Moses Kajwang.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to comment on this amendment to the Statutory Instruments Act. And Mr. Speaker, it's just that members of the committee are the ones who have contributed to it largely. They would have also benefited from the views of those who don't sit there on a regular basis. Mr. Speaker, the role of Parliament is clearly defined in the Constitution. And the Constitution says in Article 94(5) that no person or body other than Parliament has the power to make provision having the force of law in Kenya except under authority conferred by this Constitution or by legislation. The primary body to which legislation lawmaking has been delegated by the people is Parliament. Mr. Speaker, over the years, and this is a problem that applies across the Commonwealth, a lot of parliaments have become lazy and they've opted for skeleton legislation. And to fill the gaps, they have resorted to subsidiary legislation or statutory instruments. Statutory instruments have a place in terms of efficiency and providing further details on matters that cannot be captured in the Constitution or matters that cannot be captured in statute. But over the years, it has been abused. Mr. Speaker, that problem is in Kenya. That problem is in many parliaments across the Commonwealth. Ultimately, Article 94(5) vests that responsibility in Parliament, not in the executive. We have created a system where most of the times Parliament legislates only 1/3, and the other 2/3 is done by the executive through statutory instruments. Mr. Speaker, I share the concern that has been raised by the chair and other members of the Delegated Legislation Committee with regards to statutory instruments that were in operation on or before 21st of January 2024. Mr. Speaker, I find this to be a very curious way of legislating, that we are amending Section 27 of the Statutory Instruments Act to say that any statutory instrument that was in operation on or before 21st of January 2024 shall continue to operate and to have effect as if the instruments had not been automatically revoked on that date. Mr. Speaker, the instruments that were in operation on or before 21st of January 2024 perhaps could have been 10 years old as compared to the Constitution that we currently have. There shouldn't be any difficulty for the executive to resubject those statutory instruments to public participation, to resubject them to Parliament, and get parliamentary approval for them to continue being in force. Mr. Speaker, not too long ago, we had a meeting with the Prime Cabinet Secretary, and Mr. Speaker, I do recall, I believe you must have chaired that meeting where Madam Aurelia Rono, who is a PS in the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, appeared before the Liaison Committee. And Mr. Speaker, I am convinced that the executive has the capacity to resubject all these statutory instruments to public participation and to the provisions of the Statutory Instruments Act. And therefore, I join my colleagues in saying that that amendment of Section 27 is mischievous, and this House must vote against it. Mr. Speaker, if we wanted to do a proper amendment to the Statutory Instruments Act, there are a few things that have been of concern over the years, which must be dealt with. I can see that this particular amendment was to deal with that section 27, so as to allow the Attorney General and the Executive to have a free ride. Mr. Speaker, a few things that I would have wanted that we look at when it comes to statutory instruments and when it comes to amendment of this particular act is, number one, if lawmaking is the exclusive domain of the legislature or parliament, and if statutory instruments still form part of our laws and regulations, Mr. Speaker, should Parliament concern itself with substance or form when considering statutory instruments? Right now, the Statutory Instruments Act requires of Parliament that when a statutory instrument is laid on the table, that the relevant committee shall consider it and only bring back a report if it wants that statutory instrument annulled. It does not have to report back on its approval, on its observations. In fact, sometimes committees do nothing, and I'm not talking about this particular committee. This committee has been very industrious. But we have seen delegated legislation committees that decide to do nothing on the statutory instruments that have been presented to them, then they become law in 28 days, because that is the provision. There's an automatic effectiveness in 28 days if the committee does nothing. Mr. Speaker, at the tail end of the last parliament, the regulations on equalization fund were brought to this house. Mr. Speaker, they are bad. Those regulations are bad. And every member who debated on the floor of this house agreed that they were bad. But the problem was, these regulations had been pending for a very long time. And counties that had been marginalized for a long time felt like the center was holding on to money that should have gone to them. A promise was brought to this house, and I wish Senator Faki was here because he was then the chair of the Delegated Legislation Committee. A promise was conveyed to this house from the National Treasury that, honorable members, please just pass these regulations to allow the money to trickle to counties, but we give you the undertaking that we shall be bringing amendments to the regulation. We refused. We refused to accede to that request. But, however, Mr. Speaker, what happened is that the committee failed to report back to the House, and so the regulations took effect automatically. Can the Delegated Legislation Committee scrutinize the substance of regulations? Right now, what the Delegated Legislation Committee is required to do is to look at the regulations to confirm whether it is in accordance with the Constitution of Kenya. To look at it to confirm whether it infringes on rights and freedoms of citizens. To look at it to confirm whether or not it infringes on the rule of law. To look at it to confirm whether the matters there cannot be better taken care of by statute. To look at it to confirm that it is not imposing taxation. But it does not go into the minute details. The other day, I saw published in the newspapers draft regulations to do with renewable energy, particularly on solar water heating systems. Mr. Speaker, the proposal was that every plan approval across the country, there must be provision for a solar water heating facility or solar water heating solution. And as good as that is, Mr. Speaker, as good as that is, in Nairobi in this month of June, when it is extremely cold, it might not be practical in Mombasa. It might not be practical in Turkana. It might not be practical in certain parts of Nyanza. So if you get regulations of that nature that makes it mandatory to have a solar water heating solution in every corner of the country, you are opening the door for rent seeking. Because someone will come to your little shack in the village and tell you that we shall not approve until we see solar water heating in it. If such regulations came to the House, is Parliament are the hands of Parliament bound that they cannot get into the substance? If public participation was done, if it ticked all the other boxes, can Parliament say that this is an impractical regulation? Mr. Speaker, I would like that if we want to give good effect to the Statutory Instruments Act, we look at that aspect. Number two is on the issue of mediation. We have situations where the National Assembly has considered regulations concurrently with the Senate and arrived at different results. And that, Mr. Speaker, came out clearly in the 11th Parliament. The then Senator for Meru, Senator Kiraitu Murungi, proposed some amendments to the Parliamentary Service Commission Act. And in those amendments, he proposed that the Commission could set up a subcommittee to look at the affairs of the Senate, because the Act was written with a unicameral Parliament in mind. And Mr. Speaker, many of us supported the amendment, and we thought that it was a good idea, so that there is focus. We were not splitting the Commission, we were just bringing focus on matters to do with the Senate, so that there's also focus on matters to do with the National Assembly. Afterwards, we were required to come up with regulations to give effect to the thinking and to give effect to some of the things that nowadays we enjoy, like the oversight funds. Mr. Speaker, we were taken round and round in circles. We came up with draft regulations. The other house rejected those regulations, and that was the end of it. We do not have a procedure for mediation when the two houses fail to agree. That, in my view, should have been the urgency that the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, who is the promoter of this bill from the National Assembly, should have looked at. Mr. Speaker, the issue of expiry of statutory instruments, we had put it in law that they shall expire in 10 years, and I do agree with my colleagues who say that we will not support that inclusion of the amendment of Section 27 that wants to revive, to exhume, and bring back to life regulations that expired on the 24th of January 2024. The other one, Mr. Speaker, is on the date on which statutory instruments take effect. There are certain statutory instruments that have been crafted in such a way that the effective date is clear. But there are those that require publication in the Gazette for them to take effect. And Mr. Speaker, sometimes you find very funny games being played at the government publisher, that it takes forever for regulations to be published in the Gazette, and therefore, even when all the processes, people have gone through them, those regulations cannot be effected. And I think one of the cases we have had in the past was a public benefit organization's regulations, Mr. Speaker. It took forever for them to be published, and it threw that sector in a limbo. Mr. Speaker, can Parliament consider having the power to review or to nullify regulations suo moto without being prompted, or even on the basis of a petition? Regulations originate from the executive. They are drafted by the executive. And once we approve them, they take effect. Mr. Speaker, what is the process of annulling a regulation that perhaps was approved by Parliament, but which has turned out to be a national pain, which has turned out to be impractical, which has turned out to be inconsistent with the policy and the aspirations of the people? Can we grant ourselves that power? Yes, we have the power to amend legislation. We have the power to amend statute. Do we have the power to propose an amendment to regulation once it's in force? Perhaps Senator Mugatana will educate us on that. But it is extremely dangerous if Parliament has the power to amend the parent, act, but then the regulations that give effect to it then seems to be something that we cannot touch unless it originates from the executive. Those are some of the things that we need to look at to amend in the Statutory Instruments Act. Again, Mr. Speaker, we must address the failure to bring regulations. In the climate change space, we came up with the Climate Change Act. We established a climate change fund way back in 2016. Mr. Speaker, to date, the Climate Change Fund has not been established. Why? Because the regulations have never been brought to Parliament. And that is 10 years. 10 years. No one wants to do it because they want the money to remain in the parent ministry. Because they know that the minute you establish a fund, it is ring-fenced, there is greater scrutiny. And Mr. Speaker, as someone within that space, it would be my desire for us to push for the actualization of the Climate Change Fund. There's a lot of money this country is committing to climate change adaptation and mitigation, and that is why we are a leader in Africa. Whenever we go for those meetings out there, Kenya has got a lot of case studies, a lot of good examples. If you look at FLOCA, it is something, a model that is being studied by many other countries. If you look at our 47 counties, each county has got a climate change fund. Each county has got a climate change fund regulation, but we have failed to come up with a national climate change fund regulation. As a result, climate change money, some of it is at the National Treasury, some of it is in the relevant ministry, some of it is in the presidency. It is scattered all over the place. I believe that if you are able to consolidate and provide good clarity, it would even be possible, Mr. Speaker, that out of this climate change fund, we can come up with a green bank. And that green bank can be the prime sponsor, the prime financier of climate adaptation and climate mitigation efforts in this country. But what do we do with the CSS who have failed to bring those regulations to this House? Those are the consequences that we must put in the Act to ensure that we compel them to do so. Mr. Speaker, I want to conclude by reminding my fellow colleagues that we have a very, very sacred duty which is only granted to this Parliament. Let us not give our responsibility, let us not yield our responsibility to the executive. There are certain executive directions, Mr. Speaker, and if you go to the strict definition of statutory instruments, Mr. Speaker, it includes even tariffs and taxes and proclamations. And sometimes you wake up and you find that the National Transport and Safety Authority is coming up with new fines, is coming up with new instant fine solutions without subjecting those matters to Parliament. Mr. Speaker, recently we visited South Africa with the Public Accounts Committee, and we sat through the interrogation of the books of accounts of one of the big metropolitan cities in South Africa. And Mr. Speaker, it turned out that the management of the metropolitan city decided to turn off the instant fines. Out of instant fines, that city was generating 2 billion rands annually. They turned it off. And so they were now writing fines on paper. And you know the kind of rent seeking that would be, because if your fine was 1,000 rands, someone would write 100 rands on paper and pocket the rest. Those things like tariffs, penalties, fines, those are statutory instruments in the strict definition of statutory instruments in this Act. They should come to Parliament. They should come to Parliament for consideration. And Mr. Speaker, we must find a way of getting into the substance, because it's not just a matter of NTSA convincing us that they did public participation. It is not just NTSA giving us a list of participants. We must also be able to look at those matters to confirm that indeed whatever they are proposing is something that is reasonable. And in any case, Mr. Speaker, in my view, if counties like Nairobi City County wanted to increase their own source revenue, they could set up an effective traffic management system, which other cities have done. Mr. Speaker, it is embarrassing. Whenever we travel, you go to Cape Town, you go to Abidjan, you go to even Addis. Even if you are in an Uber in the middle of the night, they will stop at the light, because they know you jump the light, there's a fine that will follow you. Governor Sakaja could do that. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, with our driving habits, if it's properly enforced, if the roads are properly done, if we have a proper public transport system, that instant fines or traffic fines alone could yield enough money to enable Nairobi to develop her markets, her hospitals, and other facilities. So, Mr. Speaker, I reject the amendment of Section 27, but I also would pray that this amendment, let it be taken back so that we have a much more comprehensive assessment of that space, so that we do not take away or we do not donate the power of Parliament to the executive. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, before we proceed with other senators wishing to contribute, Allow me to make this communication on a visiting delegation from Gitijewe MCK Fellowship in Meru County. I would like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon, a visiting delegation from Methodist Church Kenya MCK Men's Fellowship from South Imenti constituency in Meru County, who are paying a visit to the Senate on the invitation of the U.S. truly, the Deputy Speaker and Senator from Meru County. Honorable Senators, I request each member of the delegation to stand when called out so that they may be acknowledged as per the Senate tradition. 1, Mr. Lefond Getonga, Mr. Jediel Mutuma, Mr. John Chintere, Mr. Stanley Nkonge, Mr. John Mburugu, Mr. Julius Mutwiri, Mr. Edwin Dimeme, Mr. Edward Getonga, Mr. James Kenywa, Mr. Franklin Muriungi, Mr. David Nkoroi, Mr. Patrick Muriungi, Mr. Charles Nkoroi, and the last but not the least, Mr. Julius Mbabu. On behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, I extend a warm welcome to the delegation and wish you a fruitful visit. Thank you. Now that I'm on this chair, I really want to welcome this team from Meru to the Senate. South Imenti is where I served as a member of parliament for 10 years. And now they voted me as the Meru senator. But since I cannot do much from here, Senator Endo Okech. Senator Endo Okech, can you welcome this delegation from Meru? But I can see you are not at the level of the Njuri Ncheke. So,
Mr. Speaker, the level of Jurinjeke that I've been introduced to, with your wisdom, every time I come to your office, with the generosity to take tea, is the level of Jurinjeke in terms of wisdom, not age. And I've drank a lot from your wisdom, time without number, because perhaps the guest to us perhaps should know that I have been involved in the cases of Meru the entire time I've been in this parliament. When Meru was facing a lot of tides, I entered this parliament and this house to be in particular, and the first impeachment of Meru, it is you, Mr. Speaker, who made sure that the wise people could be put in that committee, and I think we did a fantastic job. The subsequent impeachments also that brought stability to Meru have really been very vocal in terms of participating there. And I think that there is stability in Meru now, courtesy of the wisdom that this house has had. And I've also been involved in the issues of Meru that most recent in my Finance and Budget Committee, I was involved in the issue where Meru was almost being stopped from getting funds from this house. And together with my sister Tabitha and the members of Finance Committee, we refused that Meru cannot be denied his monies here because of monies owed to the foreigners. So with those, Mr. Speaker, you can agree that I'm a Jurinjek in terms of my wisdom, and we can be able to say that I want to welcome this wonderful delegation. And I think in context of the honor you have given me to welcome them, I must just thank them for sending you to this house. It's a sheer coincidence that they have come here to learn a number of things from Parliament, which I want to wish them well to learn. But the biggest thing you've learned is that your own wisdom in sending into this house our own Deputy Speaker, who is now the sitting Speaker in this session, was not in vain. And indeed, we keep on praying that that wisdom can continue guiding you from what you learn here to make Meru stable, so that the years that Meru lost in the squabbles that were there at the beginning, we can be able to maintain them to be stable, and continue giving your support to our speaker here, so that whether you're sending him back to this house in the subsequent year, or otherwise promoting him to other more prominent jurijeke roles, that will be nice. But enjoy being here. I hope that you will give me the same courtesy that when you will be leaving the house, there's a tradition which he has of greeting guests outside the chambers. I will be able to share more wisdom, and those wisdom are more practical than the ones I can be able to do in the chamber. I welcome you, and I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, thank you for the kind ones. I think you are the best choice for that work. So, Senator Olekina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to make brief comments on the Statutory Instrument Amendment Bill, National Assembly, Bill number 3 of 2024. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues have already highlighted the dangers of allowing the executive to control legislation. Parliament has been given the power of the purse. And when it comes to the issue of the power of the purse, Parliament is the one that drafts legislation. In fact, in this Senate, we pronounce ourselves through motions and bills. And we are guided by the Constitution. And the Constitution is set there to be able to provide a neater way of ensuring equity. Mr. Speaker, there are so many things that we talked about grandfathering of provisions that existed in the past. One of the things that I've looked at in this bill is that the draft of the bill introduces discipline and makes sure that there are timelines, deadlines of the regulatory making body to be able to set up those regulations. But mischievously introduces now Section 27. And when I was consulting with my colleagues, particularly those who are in the National Assembly, they made me aware of this mischief, which really does not help us in any way. Because, Mr. Speaker, the needs of Kenya in 2013 were completely different from the needs of Kenya today. Mr. Speaker, today we have the movement of the Gen Zs. Their needs are completely different. We have the Gen Alphas, which language some of us may not even understand. So it is imperative, and I think the framers of the Constitution, if you look at Article 94, were quite clear in terms of trying to accommodate the change that will come in future. So now, when the National Assembly introduces this section, which I'm going to read for people to be able to understand it, to demystify further, to say that Section 27 of the Principal Act is amended by inserting the following new subsection immediately after subsection 2. 1. Any statutory instrument that was in operation and that would have otherwise stand automatically revoked on any day before the commencement of this provision shall continue to operate and to have effect as if the instrument had not been automatically revoked on the date. Mr. Speaker, that is the issue of contentious. Why do you set a sunset clause? And I want to demystify further, to go into the Constitution. When it comes to the issue of the equalization fund, there is a sunset clause which had already been put there of 10 years. Was it 10 years or something like that? If we now go back and say that we want to do that, we have to amend the Constitution to be able to say, how are the people who live in Narok? Have they been able to have some form of equity with the people who live in Meru? Things are different. So I think for neatness sake. Discipline is welcome. It is important to make sure that the bill, whenever there is any delay on implementing any laws that are passed by Parliament, Parliament is made aware. And there are consequences. Because if you are told that you must set up regulations, there's nothing wrong, Mr. Speaker, with rigidity and accountability. Laws must be rigid for us to be able to have some form of continuous or other development. But now, when you now come and say that laws that were pre the new constitution or regulations that lapsed, that now we just continue doing that, that's a shortcut. Bring them back to Parliament, let us have a conversation, subjected to public participation, and where we see that the needs have already changed in terms of those regulations, we adopt the current changes. Mr. Speaker, if you look at what is happening now, as a good example with the laws on motor vehicles, there are regulations which are being introduced, clear regulations by NTSA, stating that, look, everyone who drives a car will now be required to have an inspection sticker annually. That is something completely different. It is new. We are copying other nations. There is also an economic aspect in it. There is an economic cycle which is being introduced. One that says now private entities can be able to have those inspection centers. So that either you share the cake or you make it easy for everyone to be able to access. What we were yesterday is not what we are today. Our circumstances of yesteryears are different from the circumstances of today. So I think this clause is mischievous, and it is important that all of us are aware that these regulations are the one that determines investments into this country, how they come. If there are particular or certain regulations, let's say with the Central Bank of Kenya, or regulations by different pieces of laws that would otherwise require investment to be done in a different way now, but were much friendlier before, when we introduce this clause, you then now go to the previous prerequisites, which most of them may not even be very difficult to be able to achieve than the ones of today. Mr. Speaker, we all know that we are living on borrowed times, but on these borrowed times, we should be aware of any piece of legislation that we draft. It's got consequences. Those which are directly intended. And if you look at the intended consequences in this amendment, is to bring in discipline, rigidity, accountability when it comes into the issue of enacting legislations and regulations. But there are unintended consequences. The unintended consequences are the ones which are being mischievously introduced in amending Section 27 of the Principal Act. Leave Section 27 of the Principal Act intact. Bring all those regulations that have lapsed back here. We have the delegated legislation committee. Let the delegated committee go through them, see whether the circumstances have changed. Then by doing so, subjected to public participation, let Kenyans be aware. There is this debate that people talk about Kenyans objecting to everything. But it's because we are wiser now, much wiser than we were yesterday. It makes us question everything. Mr. Speaker, today is a Wednesday. And those whiskey drinkers, the ones who drink whiskey on Wednesday, are the ones who are the real whiskey drinkers, because they have a conversation with that drink. Those who drink on Saturday drink either to celebrate the whole week, the achievement of the week, or maybe to celebrate a game that has been won or lost. But those who sit down on a Wednesday still have 2 more days of the week, Mr. Speaker, to be able to ask. So that whiskey is asking you, what are you running away from this time? You are still trying to figure out how you're going to solve the challenges of Thursday and Friday. So that you cannot compare, Mr. Speaker. You cannot compare a whiskey drinker on a Wednesday and a whiskey drinker on a Saturday. You know, Saturday is celebratory. It's a day to rest. Wednesday is a day to think and reflect and say, how am I going to carry out my duties on Thursday? How am I going to carry out my duties on a Friday? 2 more days of work. So today is a Wednesday. So those whiskey drinkers go reflect on what this Senate is talking about when it comes to the issue of legislation. And I know we have a lot of them in the lower house. So today ask yourself, why is it that Senator Mungatana took time and said, no, this is mischievous? You know, why is it that Senator Kajwang took time and said, no. Senator Lekina, we should object to this amendment. Why is it that everything else, when it comes to discipline, everyone is applauding the drafters of this amendment? So, Mr. Speaker, I definitely support my colleagues who have taken their time to even educate us. You know, we consult here. We have a conversation. I think I'll be joining you this evening for a glass of whiskey, and we can have a conversation with it. And then maybe it can be able to guide us. Mr. Speaker, it's, you know, point of information, I'd love to be informed, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, my grandfather, my father, and myself do not partake of that Wednesday fellowship. Mr. Olekina is inviting us to the bottle of whiskey. Just to inform him. Maybe Honorable Kajwang can.
Mr. Speaker, that information was very, very important. But like I said, we are living on borrowed times. You know? So, it shouldn't matter how you live your life. It shouldn't matter who loves you or who hates you. It doesn't change who you are. You know, you just get up and move. You know, it doesn't matter how many haters you have or how many people, you know, vote you because they think you're a saint. You know, I talked about a conversation. You know, and I think everything that is happening, Mr. Speaker, now, our forefathers, our parents, went through the same thing, stages. They had those conversations. And sometimes, Mr. Speaker, to borrow from one of my favorite artists, you know, being a witness is more than enough. So now we are witnesses of what is happening in this country. Some of the things we like and some of the things we do not like. They always say the majority will always have their way, the minority will have their say. You know, when we come here and we highlight challenges that we are facing, you know, in this lifetime, we will be vindicated if we are not listened to. Because what we need to do is that on these borrowed times that we're living, we must make sure that whatever we do is something that when you sleep or when you are having a conversation with that glass of whiskey in the dark, you can actually be able tomorrow to stand firm and say, yes, I stand by what I did. You know, Mr. Speaker, you know, currently the entire country is in a mood that I cannot even explain. You know, all of us are campaigning left, right, and center. In fact, if you look at the Senate, it's empty. Why? Everybody is trying to seek their votes for you to get back here next year or for you to become a governor or whatever. You know, but we tend to forget what brought us here. The work that brought us here for us to be able to work for our people. So, and there are dangers, Mr. Speaker. You know, right now, very few of us are aware that in the next few months, Mr. Speaker, and I have a statement to that effect, hopefully I'll read it tomorrow, we are about to experience something that has not been experienced in 150 years in this world or on earth, a super El Nino. And we are not prepared, Mr. Speaker. We are not prepared. So hypothetically speaking, if there was a regulation that guided counties on how to prepare for an El Nino, 10 years ago, Mr. Speaker, our forest cover was almost maybe 30%. Now, deforestation, look at, if you go to, we have mudslides. We never used to have mudslide 20 years ago in some parts of Kenya, but now it's a common factor because we have destroyed our forest. So circumstances of yesteryears and today are not the same. So, Mr. Speaker, to conclude, I would like to plead with my colleagues that we take time to understand the consequences, intended and unintended, of any piece of legislation that we pass in this House. Otherwise, I support with amendments.
Senator Eddie Okech.
Thank you, Speaker. I want to thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to also put some few thoughts on this amendment bill. Mr. Speaker, if you read our Constitution, the one that the people are keen on the most is Article 1 of the Constitution, that talks about the power of the people and the sovereignty that comes from that power. And that sovereignty, Mr. Speaker, should ideally and must always, belong to the people by all means possible, so that the people have donated that sovereignty to their elected leaders. Those elected leaders, in one way or another, might find themselves in the situation that the Constitution enables them to delegate those kind of power given to them by the people. But a delegated power, Mr. Speaker, if not checked, or if left to be delegated for perpetuity, in perpetuity, Mr. Speaker, can be abused. And that is the sense of why we always have the Statutory Instruments Act, so that those powers that we have been given by the people, the ultimate house that has got the power given directly by the people, is the House of Parliament. And that House of Parliament therefore goes ahead and makes laws. Those laws, the ministerial agencies and departments can vary them in terms of regulations or otherwise any form of rules that they might put because of this particular Act of Parliament, the Statutory Instrument Act. This Mother Act, whatever powers that are given to this ministerial organization, Mr. Speaker, do not allow them to be overbearing. And that is why, in the wisdom of all the Mother Acts that you will see in any jurisdiction, Mr. Speaker, you will not find a statutory instrument given to ministerial departments and agencies or otherwise delegated institutions in perpetuity. The Mother Act can be there in perpetuity, but those who are delegated power cannot have these regulations in perpetuity. And the wisdom is because the environment in which our laws work, the environment in which our laws are implemented, keep on changing, Mr. Speaker, so that it is always in the wisdom of the Constitution that those laws must always be given a chance to be for the people to be consulted. So, Mr. Speaker, when I read this particular act, I think amendment bill, Mr. Speaker, I think every other section of it is a decoration, apart from section 8, which I think that this house, the way we have demonstrated to be a solid house and a sober house, must actually interrogate and focus on section 8 of this amendment. And section 8 says that section 27 of the Principal Act be amended by inserting the following new subsection immediately after section 2. That will be the section 3 that says any statutory instrument that was in operation and that would otherwise stand automatically revoked on any day before the commencement of this provision shall continue to operate and to have effect as if the instruments had not been automatically revoked on that date. If you look at that recommendation, Mr. Speaker, that would mean that the thousands of regulations that have been there prior to the 2028 Constitution and have not been reviewed, then would stay as they are. And Mr. Speaker, that is actually making the regulations and rules that were delegated to continue in perpetuity and to become law in and out of themselves without a review through a people process. And that people process, Mr. Speaker, we have proper standing committees in this house that have been put, the Committee on Delegated Legislation, that is supposed to review anything that comes from the ministries, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think this would be so dangerous for the country and so dangerous for the people that we need to ignore everything else but scrap off this entire section of the law. Why am I saying this, Mr. Speaker? I have been able to serve in this house in 3 committees. And every single time I serve in these committees, Mr. Speaker, I interact with regulations and rules that have been there prior to the 2010 Constitution, and some also after 2010 Constitution. Remember, these regulations and rules ordinarily should not take more than a decade. Because if they take more than a decade, they start becoming law in and out of themselves. So, Mr. Speaker, I've interacted with laws and regulations in different departments that make it impossible, totally impossible, to operate in the current constitutional order in a way that can empower people. And I'll give you an example of some of them, Mr. Speaker, so that you see why this could become very dangerous. Mr. Speaker, I serve in CIPIC together with Senator Osoti, who is my chair. I'm his vice chair in CIPIC. Mr. Speaker, do you know that despite the fact that under the new constitution, if you read the PFM Act that was developed after the new constitution was promulgated, Mr. Speaker, you look at section 184, section 182, that empowers counties, for instance, to have county entities that can be able to run some of the basic services in our counties, like water provision. Mr. Speaker, do you know that despite the fact that we have allowed these counties to own things like water service providers, the adjunct local authorities have not been able to transfer some of the assets to county entities to be able to run these things in autonomous ways. So that the regulations that are running things like the asset books for counties are impossible to implement, to the extent that these water service providers, Mr. Speaker, are ever struggling. They are struggling with loans that they cannot be able to pay because the regulations that are existing have made it impossible for those WSPs to own the loan books that we have in those counties. Now they are sitting with water work agencies that continue, even now, taking loans on the backdrop of water service providers, yet they give these water service providers a lot of burden. If you look at things like
material and plant and equipment in counties, Mr. Speaker, vehicles that were owned by adjunct county councils and previous municipalities, Mr. Speaker, and local governments that now do not exist in our structures, Mr. Speaker, vehicles, machineries, all the instruments of production that can be able to make water service provision in our counties proper, Mr. Speaker, are impossible to take from those waterwork agencies to WSPs because of regulations, Mr. Speaker, that cannot be reviewed. So you can imagine they become lost in themselves. And sometimes they make the operations of the county entities extremely expensive. I'll give you an example, Mr. Speaker. If today the county government of Migori, or the county government of Siaya, or the county government of Wajir, let me even take those Nordic counties that experience extreme weather conditions, were to, for instance, drill borehole. Mr. Speaker, do you know that the regulations for drilling boreholes alone, this county government must go through almost 7 regulations. And all of these regulations are compliance regulations that are tied to a fee. So you find that for you to do one borehole, a county government probably will just need to use, to hire a rig and then do a proper borehole at about 1 million shillings and do a proper borehole. But because they have to go through steps of different kind of compliance regulations that have got a fee tied to them, then they need to incur an extra cost of about 200 to 300, and in some cases, Mr. Speaker, like the northern counties, end up paying up to 400,000 shillings in compliance regulations. You have to pay NEMA some money. You have to pay WASREB some money. You have to pay all these different agencies that have been put under regulations that don't exist, Mr. Speaker, want to squeeze money from all these counties just to dig a borehole. So a borehole that could have been dug at 900,000 to 1 million, they end up digging at 1.5 million. And Mr. Speaker, if you were to compute that amount, to say a county that needs even 20 boreholes at 500 shillings extra cost, that means that this county is going to lose a cost of almost another 10 boreholes that they could have done without these regulations. This is the kind of environment that we are operating in, Mr. Speaker. So if you leave this kind of bill to pass this House of the Senate, and Mr. Speaker, it goes that those kind of existing regulations that are going on to just go on in perpetuity without that review, Mr. Speaker, I think it will be a disservice to the intent that the Constitution wanted when it allowed us to create the Mother or the Parent Act, for which there has to be a review and going back to the people after every decade, Mr. Speaker. And it's not only in the areas that I've talked about in the devolution family, Mr. Speaker. Of course, devolution family suffers the most, because if you look at simple things like, I come from Lake Victoria, and my people, together with the senator of Oma Bay, who has just spoken, we are fisher folks. And therefore, one of the biggest areas that you'll find the swath of young people and even older people who don't have economic opportunities trying to make a sense of life for themselves is actually in the lake. But Mr. Speaker, today, one of the biggest innovations that are actually changing the lake is what we call cage fishing. In fact, there is one of the biggest cage fishing farms in the continent called Victory Farms, that is actually based out of Sindo. That is in Oma Bay County, where my brother, Senator Kajuang, comes from. This particular farm, Mr. Speaker, employs 1,000 people directly. It has got one of the biggest value chains that is trying to put a plate of fish in every Kenyan plate today. They are doing about 49 million fish a day. And Mr. Speaker, I can tell you for a fact that they've got capacity of making sure that 600,000 tons worth of fish that is a deficit in this country can be able to be achieved in our lifetime. But they can't do it by themselves. They can do it when they empower fisher folks around them, around the lake, to start having smaller fish caging facilities in the lake. But Mr. Speaker, if you look at the ministerial regulations around access to compliance for the fisher folks in Lake Victoria, for somebody to be able to do fish caging, to even just get a consent to access the lake, there's a regulation to it. You must pay a fee. The BMUs in Homa Bay, the BMUs are the beach management unit organizations, Mr. Speaker, so I don't use any jargon that Senator Nyambu will not understand, because maybe she doesn't do fish farming. But Mr. Speaker, the BMUs are experiencing a lot of problems in terms of regulations that have been put there on a simple act of simply going to put a fish cage in their own water and start fish farming and be able to plug into the distribution chain that Victory Farm has done across the country with all their depots across the country. To give you a perspective, Mr. Speaker, a fish cage that can be able to carry about 10,000 fingerlings that then will grow to big fish can cost about 150,000 to put in place. A farmer can go out and get a loan anywhere to put this. But for them to pass the regulations that have been put together by different ministerial requirements, Mr. Speaker, they can actually depart with almost 50,000. So the cost of regulation is making these farmers not to possibly start a business that can be able to start to have. This is among these thousands of regulations that we have in this particular bill that wants to bypass some of this. And Mr. Speaker, I can go on and on. If you look at our Land Act, Mr. Speaker, the pre-digital land and survey regulations that we have today, Mr. Speaker, make it almost impervious, totally impossible for people to be able to embrace electronic transaction in land transactions in this country, Mr. Speaker. And these older frameworks, Mr. Speaker, if you look at them, they will create a lot of frictions where simple technology could have been put in place, like blockchain technology, Mr. Speaker, like digital signatures. If I'm in the US today, I want to buy land in Kenya. I cannot interact with digital signatures to be able to buy land because regulations still want to depend on simple paperwork that were pre-2010 Constitution. So the moment we pass this bill, Mr. Speaker, the way it is, what are we saying about these regulations that have not caught up with the ongoing opportunities that we have in the land survey as well as land purchase agreements that we can be able to deal with, Mr. Speaker? I can go on, Mr. Speaker, even if you look at the agricultural sector, Mr. Speaker. AFA, for instance, and this affects you and myself, Mr. Speaker. The Agricultural and Food Authority and crop regulations. You remember, Mr. Speaker, that there have been regulations that the generic crop regulations, for instance, Mr. Speaker, where it has criticized certain crops and somehow suffocated their specialization element in such a sector that it is so difficult for them to get some subsidies that perhaps you qualify. For instance, why, Mr. Speaker, should AFA allow for coffee to be subsidized, for maize to be subsidized, and not Mira, and not sugarcane, because of special classification of these crops? Why would those regulations exist when, if you go to Nyanza today, if somebody is not in the fish industry, they are in the sugarcane industry? So it means that whatever coffee and tea are benefiting from, whether they are classified as high-end cash crops or otherwise, Mira should get the same kind of treatment. Why should that regulation pass because it is being bypassed with this particular section of the law? So, Mr. Speaker, I have a problem with this section of the law. let all the regulations that have been there, that have passed 10 years, be brought back to the delegated legislation committees of Parliament. Let them go back to the people. Let them have public participation. Let the delegated legislation committees of this House approve of them continuing to work. Because otherwise, the ministry is trying to have a serious back channel of just creating laws on its own. And Mr. Speaker, if you're not careful with this kind of laws, they will seriously affect different sectors. Right now, Mr. Speaker, do you know there's a regulation that requires that all the companies that are in in Nairobi Nairobi Security Exchange must be able to do something they call ESG, which is environmental and social and governance instrument under something they call IFGR, so that that compliance can be able to create a cost division in all these particular companies. The cost of implementation is not talked about. Its impact on service, for instance, banking, Mr. Speaker, where compliance is a big issue. Compliance in the banking sector will affect ABSA, will affect Equity Bank, will affect these different banking departments, and make it almost impossible to provide service, Mr. Speaker. So we must look at this in totality, Mr. Speaker. So I wanted to request fellow senators that this particular Section 8, we must not allow. So while I do support this,
give him 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm saying that while I support this bill, in the other sectors that has been put, I wanted to do attention of this House and attention of all senators to this particular Section 8 that I think we should amend by deleting it in entirety for us to be able to pass this bill. Otherwise, we will leave ministries to going to start their own ways of making laws without allowing Parliament to go through a process of consulting the people who are supreme in the lawmaking. We must go back to public participation, and over these 1,000 regulations that we have seen in this country, Mr. Speaker, must be reviewed in the context of the law and allow the House of Parliament to do its work by making laws. Therefore, I support with amendments and specific amendment, Mr. Speaker, of deleting Section 8 in its entirety. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honorable Senators, having no other senator willing to contribute, I call upon the mover to reply. Since the mover is not allowed, I defer the reply of the bill, the motion. Honorable Senators, we reorganize the order paper from order number 10 to 21. These are divisions, so I defer all those divisions. Then we go to order number 22, Clerk.
Order number 22, the Autism Management Bill, Senate Bills number 19 of 2025, second reading. Resumption of debate interrupted on Thursday, 14th May 2026.
This motion is open for debate. Order number 22, Senator Ososi. And if there is no senator willing to contribute, I will call upon the mover to reply. The mover is in the house.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for this opportunity. The autism bill is a bill that is highly anticipated by families and Kenyans who have been living with autism condition and parents who have been raising autistic children all on their own without any support from the state. The proposals in this bill include autism being covered under SHA, structured diagnosis, structured therapy, and support through and through for families, Mr. Speaker. It also has a human right approach for adults who are living with autism. We are looking forward, Mr. Speaker, to having these families recognized and accommodated in society and by the government support from the Ministry of Education, from the Ministry of Health, so that these families do not have to struggle with this condition without any aid from the state, Mr. Speaker. There was, from the public participation, there was a very big concern that there's a vast neurodivergent conditions, various, not just autism. We have others as well that needed to be included in this bill. And I hope as we go for division, as members debate, we are going to enrich this bill further. The whole point is to ensure that the children feel included, feel cared for, families don't feel left alone. It is a huge burden, Mr. Speaker, as it came out from during the pre-publication scrutiny stage in the committee. We were lucky to have one senator in the health committee that is raising a child, 7-year-old son, who is autistic, and he had a wealth of contribution. He had a wealth of contribution towards this bill and a lot of changes brought forward. And Madam Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 66.3, having no requisite quorum, I request that we defer for putting of the question. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Karen Nyamo. The putting of the question is now deferred. Next order.
Order number 23, motion Consideration of the report of the Mediation Committee on the Food and Feed Safety Control Coordination Bill, National Assembly Bills number 21 of 2023.
The mover of this motion is the Vice Chair, Mediation Committee, who is not here. I believe it's Senator Morango. Is that Senator Morango? For order number 23. So the motion is, Senator Wakoli is the one who was supposed to move this motion. He is not in the House, so this motion is deferred. Next order.
Order number 23, the County Government's Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 39 of 2024, second reading.
That is order number 24 or 23? That should be order number 24. Clerk. Senator Bogwa is not in the House, so that motion is also deferred. Next order.
Order number 25, the Street Naming and Property Addressing System Bill, Senate Bills number 43 of 2024, second reading.
Senator Fatuma Dulo, MP, she's not in the House, so that motion is also deferred. Next order.
Order number 26, the County Government's Laws Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 14 of 2025, second reading.
The mover is Senator Abdul Haji. He's not in the House, so the motion is deferred. Next order.
Order number 27, the Agriculture and Food Authority Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 13 of 2023, second reading.
Senator James Morango, also not in the House. That motion is deferred. Next order.
Order number 28, motion, report of the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations on sessional paper number 1 of 2025 on the foreign policy of the Republic of Kenya.
The Chairperson, Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations, also not in the House. That motion is deferred. Next order.
Order number 29, motion, report of the Liaison Committee on the activities and operations of select committees during the third session, 2024.
The Chairperson, Liaison Committee, Senator Kathuri, is not in the House. That motion is also deferred. Honorable Senators, there being no other business on the order paper, the Senate stands adjourned until tomorrow, Thursday, 4th June 2026 at 2:30 p.m. Thank you.